The Ways and Means Committee of the Board of Aldermen is now called to order. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Crewston. Alderwoman Florida.
Present.
Alderwoman Behringer.
Present.
Vice Chairman Williamson. Alderman Moore. Alderman French.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Carter.
Present.
Chairman Kennedy.
Here.
5 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're here today to continue our budget hearings. We need the Todd Waelterman. Is he out in the hall? If you would please bring him in. First up today, we have the street department and then the various sections up under it. Our first guest will be Todd Waelterman from the street department. There are some other chairs over here. We'll have you right. All right, thank you. As you might be aware, it was last week we had 2 public hearings of the Ways and Means Committee, which were very well attended, and we had numerous requests to continue to have the process to be open. And so we decided as a committee this year to go forward with trying to have them recorded and aired on the TV 10, on St. Louis TV. Now, our original plan was to be in the Kennedy room, but it was already scheduled.
Yeah.
So it's tight, but our committee decided to try to do this today.
As long as the AC works, we'll be fine.
It'll be all right. And it's still working right now.
Yeah.
Do they come on the streets?
No, it doesn't.
So if you would give us your overview of the budget and your thoughts on it from the street department.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. The budget's very mellow, to say the least. There's not a lot of changes from last year. I was going to go through, well, first of all, may I introduce
Surely.
some of the staff that helps me out, that
Yes.
tries to make me look good? All right. We have Claude Gunn, manages the tow lot. We have Nick Young, the refuse commissioner. Ken Flake, street commissioner. I didn't know if you wanted him here today.
Yes, that's
I noticed he wasn't on the agenda, 5:14, but I brought him anyway.
That's right.
And who are we missing here? You know Mike Halsey? I think you guys see him every once in a while. And I think that's it.
No, I'm here.
There you go.
Oh, there's Steve Rundy. See, he's so quiet, I forget about him. So, starting with the director's office, the 510 budget, the only thing we did there was we moved 3 positions from the refuse office staff into the director's office. Another step in centralizing the office staff. You know, over the past few years, we've been doing that. And so we have all the office staff together under one leadership now. And I think we're getting some efficiencies and cutting down on our errors. Overall, in these budgets, you're going to notice a little bit of 5246 increase. That's for training. This past year, we've had a few incidents that kind of woke us up and said, we're not keeping up with training. Safety training, boom truck, basket truck operation, you know, that type of stuff. We've been very weak on that. I think over the past few years, we've been cutting everywhere we could. And it was very in my face the last 6 months or so that we need to do that. So you're going to see an overall of about $10,000 or $12,000 added total throughout the budget to do this training. I think that's very essential. Moving on to the traffic budget, you'll see that we divided the material lines up here. You know, you always see this big number of $1 million for material. Everybody says, what the heck? Looks like we ought to cut that. So I thought it'd be advantageous to break it up into these different sections to show what we're spending on streetlights, what we're spending on traffic signals, and you know, what we're spending on sign material and that, to give you a better view. You'll also notice that our request numbers are a little bigger than what we got. Materials continue to go up. We're seeing that. You see it at home. Copper's up. We have a mandate now to increase reflectivity on our signs. And so now all the sign material we buy is 30% higher. It's got to do with the baby boomers not being able to see the signs. They have to be made bigger and more reflective. That's serious. And so these costs are going up. Unfortunately, we didn't get any more money, but we're going to continue on. You'll also notice the electric accounts are spread out there to see where they are. They're going up just like they are at home. The biggest thing I want to bring your attention to is the street lighting. Electric is going up more than the others, and a lot of that is due to adding this decorative lighting. We're adding more fixtures and more watts, so it's going up faster than the other electrical accounts. Also in traffic, in the 5659 account, you saw we had a request for $175,000 in there that was zeroed out. We did get that money through the capital account, and that's going to provide a match fund to replace our automatic traffic master system, the brains of our computer system that runs our traffic signal. And East West Gateway gave us preliminary approval for a $750,000 grant, match money, to get that done in a couple years. Additionally, one of the last items, you'll see the MD&R loan went away. That was a loan we had installing LED traffic signals. That zeroed out. We're all good. That worked out well. Moving on to the tow division, 513. That's pretty much stagnant. You'll see at the 5339 was a request for, I believe, $90,000 for a tow truck. It was denied. The budget director tells me that we should have some capital money this fall and we should be able to get us a tow truck. Our equipment up there is pretty rough. Street division, there's only really two lines there. Salt is 5237. You'll notice we requested more than we got, but the budget director, we worked with him and did a transfer this current year to make up that difference. So we'll be fully stocked with the salt, replenishing the salt. And that was due to that last storm we had where we got the 11 inches or whatever it was. Right. That was after the budget process had started. So we all worked together to make that work out. The 5238 account in the street division is for asphalt. You'll see we requested more. We're getting in dire need there. We haven't had a lot of capital money to do paving. You haven't had a lot of ward money to do paving. Our streets are going to heck pretty quick here, and we requested an extra $100,000, which we didn't get. It's going to be very tight. It's going to be a tough market to keep going, but we're going to take what we got and move on. Moving into refuse. I think refuse is the real story here. You know, we've all been through a lot over the last 3 years since we started billing for trash. You know, come July here, the refuse billing will have generated $40 million. I mean, to think about that. Generating $15 million a year, generate a little over 10 the first year, 15 these last two. $40 million, that's enough to run the entire street department, all its costs for a year. You know, it's a heck of a thing, and I know we all endured a lot of flack for that. You know, before we were doing that, we had about 18,000 work orders a year. Once we started charging the demand for quality, you know, cans that weren't rusty and better service, and we wound up going up to about 25,000 work orders that first year. I'm real happy to say we're below where we started. We're under 17,000 work orders a year now, so we've restored the satisfaction, I think, in the refuse division with, you know, putting cans out there and some of the programs we implemented. We are now at 16% diversion rate with recycling, and we started 3 years ago at 2%. And it may not sound a lot, but, you know, it took us almost 2 years to roll the program out completely citywide. So we've only had it in place a little over a year. So it's getting there. We have some other little fine tuning we're going to do, and we see that, you know, going up to 20% here over the next year or so. And I don't see it stopping. It's going to gradually grow. Yeah, as part of that, you'll notice the transfer station fee has greatly reduced. It was a little over $6 million 3 years ago, and it's now budgeted for 5.1. So there's a $900,000 a year savings. That money was rolled into two things. You'll see on the back of there we have a loan payment. We were able to buy some new trucks. So I think we have like a 5-year loan. This is the second year on paying that off. And the rest of the money went to help buy cans and do the cameras and that stuff. You know, our infrastructure was really rough 3 years ago. We've replaced a lot of cans. I think we have it kind of steady now, but we must keep doing that. We're tugging with a big issue there now with our labor. You know, the federal laws have been such that people are off work quite a bit, family medical leave, and the rules are very lax. So people are getting a lot of time off. So it's very difficult for us to get enough people in the work to get the trash picked up. And so to that end, last year I hired a GIS guy, and we've managed to map all our routes, and we managed to put all the cans on a GIS map, and we're going to approach expanding these routes. So we're going to expand these routes 10, 15%, you know, with the idea then we'll be able to staff them completely. Because it's been hell for the last couple of years of, do you have enough trucks on Monday and Tuesday, or do you have enough labor? So that's one of the things we're doing. I'm very proud of what these guys have accomplished, you know, getting this mapping going, and it was a long process. But now we're ready to sit down and start working it out. And there will be some bumps. Anytime you change somebody's routes, there'll be some missed stuff, but we'll get through it. The one guy I didn't introduce here was Ron Hasty. He is not part of the street department, but he's a very important part. He runs the trash task force, Sergeant Hasty. And I know we had some questions, Chairman. Do you want to go into those right away, or what do you want to do?
If you're completed with what your presentation. If you're completed, we can start with the question.
Well, I had these questions you sent me, these 4 questions.
Yes.
You want me to go over them now, or?
You can.
Okay.
You can.
So, the question was, how much money has the trash fund generated? And as Paul mentioned, that's on page 13 of the general revenue in the book, in the budget, and that is at $15 million a year now. The other one was the total amount of money spent on alley cameras to date. Well, we initially bought about $650,000 worth of cameras, and we spend about $100,000 a year on labor, moving them around from spot to spot. And then there's another cost associated with that that's not in the street department budget, that is part of the task force budget, who does the enforcement part of that. The third question was, what are we gonna do? What are the actions and the, you know, the arrests and convictions, what's that all about? And I thought Ron could speak to that. He's been the guy going out, him and his crew, getting these guys. And the fourth question was, what are the plans, money related to cameras this year? So there is some money in here for purchasing some more cameras. They've been up a little over 2 years. While it started 3 years ago, it took time to acquire them. We've had 1 camera stolen, which isn't bad.
Really?
Isn't bad, out of 125 cameras. And so we're gonna purchase a few more cameras, and there's upkeep on them. We have to replace batteries and these cards, the memory cards. So I hope that kind of addresses those questions. Are you ready for Ron now, or do you want to go into the questions?
No,
on the
let's hear from him, and then
Okay.
we'll take our round.
Ron, yeah. No, we didn't get a picture of the guy stealing the camera, because he took it with him.
We did get a picture of the guy still in the trash container. What they'll take for scrap is beyond me, but, Good morning. As everybody said, Todd said, I'm Ron Hasty. I am the coordinator for the trash task force. I'm here to answer any questions. I can give you an overall view. The last 2.5 years, we've had about 440 cases. Out of those 440 cases, we were able to arrest 375 people on these. Some of these cases, some of these cases, what you have to understand is that they may be captured in the alley, placing stuff in the dumpsters. A lot of times it's people, especially in Alderman Carter's ward, right there along the city and county border. People are coming in and disposing of their trash in our receptacles. We're catching them, giving them a summons, bringing them into court. We're trying to levy the maximum fine. We were having an issue the first year. We just had a meeting, 6 weeks ago with the city courts, and I'm happy to say that from what I gather, we're all on the same page now. We're asking for maximum fines on this illegal dumpings of $500 is the maximum fine we can get. 40 hours community service, which we're shooting to have done in the ward where the illegal dumping has occurred. So, you know, we want these people back out in the alleys, cleaning the alleys up that they're destroying by dumping the trash. We've had quite a few repeat offenders. So, Alderman Boyd, I know that we've had an issue with tires, and we're looking into a way of seizing these folks' vehicles. And you're not going to dump too much trash if you don't have a vehicle to dump it with. I think what we really need to work on this next year is communication. Because I get a lot of requests from different people on cameras, and I think some of it falls through the cracks. But, if somebody wants to contact me directly, you know what, I will get a hold of the camera guy instead of contacting 3 or 4 different people and saying, hey, I want a camera here. I know that we've had some issues with cameras, you know. Some aldermen say, hey, I need 15 cameras, you know, and we need more cameras, basically. But again, you know what, my guys, I'm down, I had 2 guys retire, so I'm down 2 guys already. And come August, I don't know where we're gonna come up with the money to, you know, just keep going the way we're going. But I think that, you know what, we're getting the maximum fines. A couple of things proactive that we've been doing. I don't know if anybody's ever saw the quality of these pictures that the cameras are catching. So I brought a few in that you can pass around. What we're doing with the refuge department, streets department, all the city services is I generate these wanteds on the vehicles that we're looking for that we don't have a license plate on. We've been having really, really good luck locating these vehicles through different, we've had one up in Ward 2 where they have a neighborhood group, and believe it or not, we've located 4 vehicles by this neighborhood group by just sending these pictures out to them saying, hey, you know, these guys have to be in your neighborhood because they're constantly dumping in the same spots. So Todd's been very proactive about getting these out to all the different departments. And, you know, we're going hard and heavy on them, and, you know, we want to put them in jail if they continue to do the same thing over and over.
All right, we can, that is it?
All I have.
Okay, then we'll start with members of the committee. Alderwoman Cruzen, any questions?
So Ron, on these folks that are doing the illegal dumping, it's hard to tell exactly from the picture, but what is the MO here? Somebody hires them to clean out their basement or garage or something like that, and they get somebody really cheap, and so of course they get them cheap because this guy's not going to dump it properly.
He's not going to pay the tipping fees. You know, we have, you know, the scenarios basically, you know, Miss Jones pays somebody that she, you know, somebody gives her the word that, you know, Mike's doing some hauling, or these trucks, you'll see them running around the city. It says, you know, we haul for less, or, you know, light hauling. And
So then do they just,
they just drive a couple alleys over and dump it in somebody else's alley, or
and
take
they
it to
don't even
different.
bother to put it in the dumpster? That's why this
No.
trash is all over the place here.
Right. A lot of these guys are not licensed to be operating in the city.
Of course.
So when we get them, we charge them with not having a business license. We charge them with not, they're supposed to have all that covered up. If they're hauling anything in the city, it's supposed to be covered with a tarp, so it doesn't fall out and create a safety hazard with somebody driving down the street. We've actually had a couple of cases where refuge has pulled up on a guy, illegal dumping, and they tell them, and the guy would take off. And we had an incident a couple of months ago where refuge started following him to get the license plate. The guy started throwing furniture off the truck at the refuge driver while going down Kings Highway.
So, you've had 440 cases, or 440 arrests and 301 cases, correct?
We've had 440 cases and then 375 arrests, basically, and that's not counting the arrests that we've had this year, but we still have to compile.
And how much have you generated in fines? Would there be any way of knowing that?
That would be up to the courts, because like I say, our goal was that everybody who was brought in on a dumping would be receiving the maximum fine of $500. We ran into a couple, and this is why we had the meeting, we ran into a couple of cases. I'm embarrassed to say that one was, I don't know if everybody heard, the U.S. Postal Office, or driver that we had that illegally dumped. Somebody took it upon themselves to amend the charge from illegal dumping to allow muffler, and they received like a $99 fine.
So our prosecutor had to agree to that?
That was one of the things that I was monitoring to say, hey, you know, this is foul. You know, we can't be doing this. If we're going to make an impact on these people illegally dumping, we need the maximum fines. We need the community service. We need to show these people that, hey, it's not going to be tolerated in the city.
And the 125 cameras, they're all over the place.
Right.
And you move them around.
We move them around periodically. Usually if, say, Alderman Moore requested some cameras. We had 2 up that we were getting really good results on.
too.
Two of the others, we leave those. Two of the others, we weren't getting anything at all on. And I'm quite sure if it's anything like the calls that I get, it's, somebody saying, hey, we need a camera there, and I put it there, and then, or we run the calls for service, and there's a few there, but not as much as we'd like.
And you feel like these cameras have cut down on the amount of dumping in the city
I
over
think
the
they
last
have.
couple of years?
Yeah, I think they have. I think it's a slow process, and everybody here has to realize that these cameras are a tool. Just like when I'm at work, my flashlight's a tool, my gun's a tool.
Right.
It's a tool. And it's not a fix-all, and...
Right, sure, okay. Okay. Switching over to, we're going to section by section in Todd's department? Is that okay? All right. Switching over to refuse and dumpsters and that sort of thing. Some aldermen put money in out of their ward capital improvement to buy dumpsters as requested by the refuse department. Some aldermen don't, or some aldermen don't put in much, but every alderman has dumpsters.
Yes.
And so if you have, for the aldermen who don't fund their dumpster, the purchase of their dumpsters or replacement, you're paying for their dumpsters. Is that right?
Yep, some of the money comes out of general revenue, and then we take some of the cans, the bottoms are still kind of in, and we move them in there. It's kind of a
Yeah.
make-do kind of thing.
Right.
Get the aldermen to buck up, get the brand new ones the quickest, and,
Yeah.
that type of thing. And the other ones just kind of get a follow-through.
Yeah. I don't think that's quite the right way of doing this. I mean, to me, it's, either the city ought to provide dumpsters for everybody, or, I don't know what we do when an alderman decides that they won't fund dumpsters. We, meaning the whole city, we don't have the option of having a ward with no dumpsters. And I guess that's why we pay for it out of general revenue.
Right. Well, I agree.
So I guess I would suggest a better system. We already slice off the top 25% award capital improvement, and maybe next year we could allocate that for dumpsters or for everybody, so that there's some kind of similarity here. You don't think so?
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think that we...
If she can complete, because we'll come
Yeah.
around to it.
That's okay.
She did, but I'm the chair.
Well, okay, either, it's not fair, we all get the same amount of ward capital improvement money, and, so,
Although you're correct. Alderman.
buying
It's a-
option,
it's a
not buying
million-dollar
dumpsters
problem.
should not be an option.
Right, it's $1 million problem. If everybody contributed right, it would create $1 million.
Right.
The request, and it would work fine. So that's kind of what we're getting. This
Okay.
year's sheet shows $878,000 being contributed from, it looks like all but 4 aldermen participated to some rate.
Yep, okay, thanks. No further questions, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Florida?
I only have a couple of questions. In your traffic and lighting division, you had requested $110,000 in per performance, but only got $20,000. How are you dealing with that?
The intent of that was to enhance our painters. The idea was to hire 2 or 3 summer painters to paint the lines, to, keep up. We've had all these bike paths added, these bike routes, so we have more stripes out there. Over the years, we've been not painting all the pedestrian crosswalks. So the idea was get these, these 3 people on board during the summer when you can really do some painting and try to catch up with some of this work. And that's what the extra $90,000 was. We figured we'd spend about $30,000 a person, get 3 limited term painters in here.
So you didn't even get one?
We did not.
Okay.
I think we have 5 in the budget, Steve, is there 5 painters in the city? And, that's a far cry from what we need.
Okay, so that's one issue. And then, simple question, and it's 1116 Metro Trash Service.
Yes.
And I noticed it was $108,547. So I'm just wondering, we have a memorandum of agreement with Metro Trash to pick up the trash receptacles, and E&A has signed a memorandum of agreement with Metro, and I thought the amount was $125. So,
I thought it was 100.
okay, maybe it
Yeah.
keeps going down. I know I tried to get 300, but anyway, so how's that going?
So they sent us a check for whatever it is,
Okay.
$8,250 or something every month.
Okay, how's that going, though?
And they've been paying it.
Okay.
Our crew's been going out and working.
Okay.
And I think we've been keeping up with the cans on the curbs.
Okay, so it's working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I think we have 3 crews in the city budget, and this is our 4th crew.
Right, and I'm proud of our recycling and the initiative, and, I'm very pleased with the way that it has developed and the progress we've made, and the money we've saved in the transfer trash fees. So, thank you, that's all.
Alderwoman Behringer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to, I'll start with you, Todd. You talked about the asphalt money, that it's gone down. So if your budget has gone down for asphalt money, and our ward capital money that we have to use to get our streets asphalted has gone down, what's happening? Are there any streets you're having to asphalt because you have to, because there's just no choice? And then where are you finding the funding for that, if that's the case?
Right. The asphalt money has not gone down. We actually made a larger request, I believe, this year. Yeah, if you look across here in 11, it was 578, 606, 630 last year. We wanted to go to 730 was our request.
Okay.
And the idea is, we have money to throw and do potholes, but unfortunately, the potholes are starting to connect.
Right.
And the roads are getting real rough. So the intent of this money would be to grind out the 6-8 potholes and do an area patch. And 100,000 seems wild, but when you start doing that in the city, you'll eat it up like nothing. It was our catch-up system to try to make them a little smoother. We haven't had the roads going this bad in a long time. And you're gonna start seeing that boom, 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 3-4 patches in a row. That's what this $100,000 would help make go away.
Okay. Well, I'm just making sure, because I have to put a certain dollar amount of out of my capital money every year for asphalting. So I just want to make sure that we are equally and fairly distributing what's being done in the city.
I would imagine what's gonna happen is, they've gone through the capital round with you, and this budget comes out kind of like this. Kent and his people are gonna be coming around knocking on your door saying, hey, Hampton's a little rough here, Jameson's a little rough here. Do you have an extra 10 grand to give us, or 5 grand to give us? And we'll go out and do some area work for you on it. We don't have a choice.
Right.
I mean, I'd imagine that's where we're gonna wind up going, if this all pans out the way it is.
Okay. And then, just out of curiosity, when you talked about the decorative lighting, is it an increased cost? Is it because of the lights? In other words, I'm trying to think, if you're gonna put in decorative lighting and it's gonna increase the city costs, is there any way we can say, well, it has to be some type of lighting that doesn't increase the city costs? I wasn't sure how that worked.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a neat policy statement, to make, and that may be something we need to go to the streets committee with or something like that, to get the alderman to adopt a policy that if we're gonna increase the operating budget, that the alderman or the neighborhood or some SID or somebody has to come
Right.
up with it. Everybody believes these LED lights are the answer, and they're not proven. They'll come and tell you that they're half the electric, so the bill should be half.
Right.
But when you go to pedestrian lighting, you put 3 and 4 times the number of fixtures in. So, our big Cobra heads are there, and you might have 10 of them on a street, but you might need 30 pedestrian lights to do the same lighting. So once you go to this pedestrian lighting, you have more fixtures, more labor, more repairs, more of all of it. And I just wanted to highlight that electric bill going up much greater than the other electric bills. I think you kind of see that. So we're doing it. So, I mean, if that's something we want to pursue, that would be it.
Okay. And then my next question, now I'm going to get to trash, is that when it comes to collecting funding, because I was not on Ways and Means when this first started, has our rate of collection, is it just fine? We're getting everyone who is supposed to be
we didn't actually solve the problem, we're starting to move the problem. So we're starting to see more illegal dumping over in the 16th. So I wanted to know where Sergeant Hasty was in the budget. I missed that. I know you said that, but whose budget is Sergeant Hasty in?
He's in public safety as a grant, right?
Yeah, it's a grant that expires, or actually would be, I guess will be out of money sometime late August, early September. And right now the sequester is, we're not getting any money from here on out, from what I understand right now, so.
So when that grant expires,
Then as the officers will be done in enforcement.
They're secondary officers,
Right.
that, but what do you spend a year? It's 75,000 a year?
No, it's closer to probably, with the, how much?
What is it?
No, it's, right now, it's about around 105,000 a year, and that was with the full staff of officers.
okay. All right, and then, well, I guess it's kind of you, Todd. The opting out option for the rental, do they have, what rules are they told they must comply with? As in, when the trash receptacles in the rental units are not emptied, when they are allowed to opt out, are they told, just like the city, trash has to be picked up twice a week? Are they signing any type of a contract or any type of an agreement that says, if you're gonna come into the city, here are the rules? Like how tall your trucks are, how much weight?
No, not on the trucks. They are, Nick has established a standard of capacity and the amount they dump per household that they must abide for. And then they submit a contract from the private contractor that Nick approves, and it's supposed to be sufficient. What we have had is we've had a few that when the landlord doesn't pay, the trash guy's simple way is not pick up.
Correct.
And we've had one of them, I believe, right behind your house.
Right behind my house.
So we have now gone in and we give them 24 hours to empty it, or we pull the can. And we put our can out there and we start charging them.
Okay.
And that's our current policy. Do we need more legislation to do this? Yes, we need stronger legislation. Alderwoman Cruz was mentioned, we have some renegades running at 2, 3 in the morning through her ward.
Right.
And Ron mentioned it to me yesterday. So we need to get a piece of legislation together that gives us a little more hammer for these midnight people and a little more hammer to us when they don't dump it, because it is a public safety concern.
Okay.
Recycle.
Because that was,
Recycle.
Well, as Alderwoman Cruz mentioned, was they're not forced to recycle. And when we implemented this, we didn't have our recycling program out, so I didn't feel it was fair to make them recycle. So somehow we need to address the opt-outs, need to come up with recycling, some part of that. The other thing they don't cover is bulk. So they're getting by a little cheaper, and that's why we have about 3,000 units that have opted out. There's 30,000 units that opted out. We knew there was about 25,000 that would never go with us because they're in the large buildings, Lindell, downtown, up Kings Highway, and that. It's not efficient for us to do it. So there's about 3,000 of these 4 families and 2 families that have opted out. So it's a small thing, but we need to nip it.
yeah. Which we'll talk
We will.
about legislation on that. Because the next thing is it what is the fine that they incur when they do let it sit?
We have, through health department probably, right?
Well, no, we enforce it. I guess one thing I need to clarify is that our unit doesn't only handle the cameras, we handle all the CSB complaints for illegal dumping, container violations, failure to keep the properties clean. So, I mean, we investigate all those complaints along with handling the cameras also. Right now, again, the maximum fine, which we have tried to change for I don't know how many years, is $500. So if we bring them in on a refuge violation, the maximum they can get is $500. Some of the container violations are $250. We have, like Alderman Chris said, I have been getting bombarded with these private trash trucks coming into the neighborhoods at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and picking up and waking everybody in the neighborhood up. But what we've been doing is first time they get a summons, we call the company, send them a letter, then we follow up with the second time if you're caught again, because we've caught these guys several times. The thing is what a lot of people don't realize, these drivers have the luxury of making up their own routes. I've had excuses come to me that the city's too busy during the day. I don't want to be in the city during the day, you know. I don't know what to tell you, but we charge them with peace disturbance, and we also charge them with picking up between prohibited hours. So, it's a stiffer fine that way if we get them with 2 charges. And the basic concept is we want them to comply. We're not looking to lock you up and run the business away from the city. We're looking at you to comply and give a better quality of life to our residents and not wake them up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. And then the very last thing on that same note, because I want to make sure people understand the cost the city bears when this occurs, which is basically, in my area, when they opt out, okay, it's only for regular trash. And these are, God love, young people living in these rental units who believe in recycling. So they're using the recycling, they're using the yard waste, and they're using the bulk. But the unit is only paying for regular trash pickup. So if I were to say to that unit, yeah, you only pay $10 a month, but you're using this amount in services from the city, can you give me that information? So I can say, your $10 is only paying, to them, when I say to them, let me phrase that, they're paying for this outside company to come in and pick up their regular trash. But I want to know how much in services they're still receiving from the city, even though they're not paying for it.
So you want to break out a per unit cost for yard waste, recycling, and bulk?
Yes, because they're still using those 3 services.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's it, thank you.
Alderman Williamson?
Thank you. Yes, Sergeant Hastings. Sergeant, on this illegal dumping, when guys come through the alleys, you get caught dumping. Can you kind of explain the court system on the first offense, second offense? I mean, once you get caught, you get fined $500 and you do community service or you do both. And then on the second offender, what happens to them? The law is skipping.
Well, at the beginning, it was, first offense, it was basically a slap on the wrist. They could get anywhere from court cost to $150 fine, $250 fine. That's why we wanted to go in. It's such a problem, and I mean, we're spending, what, $4 million a year on illegal dumping, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Between forestry and
Right.
refuse, yes.
We decided, that's why we went with the 0 tolerance. We want the maximum fine, and we want these people in the alleys cleaning this mess up. These people are getting caught illegally dumping. They're going to senior citizens' homes and different places, sitting in the air conditioning, drinking a Coca-Cola, folding blankets or something. All right, this is not saying, and Alderman Boyd, what was the response from these guys when we made them go out and clean the tires up in your neck? This guy said, I'll never do this again. He had his mother's brand new Chrysler that he was loading tires into the back seat. We want the 0 tolerance approach on this. We want these people to realize the first time you're going to get slapped, and you're going to get slapped to the, if we could make it $1,000 fine, we'd make it $1,000 fine. Some of these guys are dumping. We had one guy that dumped 20 times, and I mean, I'm talking trailer loads, 20 times in 4 different wards. And he had a route. And I mean, he lived out in, Blackjack in a, probably a $500,000 house. Now, his house didn't look like that, but he thought that he had the right to come into the city and do this. So we charged him with, he had, by the time it was all said and done, I think he had 30 counts on him of illegal dumping, different types of hauling sticker, anything that we could hit him with. And I'm happy to say the last 1.5 years, we haven't seen him back in the city. So he may still be incarcerated, I don't know, but he's not.
You helped him to retire.
Yeah. But he's not back in the city doing the same thing.
I think we need more cameras, I agree.
And I think that we need to make sure that we're catching it all at both ends also. We're checking to make sure they got business license to be operating in the city. And forestry, streets, I can't give them enough kudos because, I mean, these guys, we send these flyers out, and I mean, they'll call me. My agreement was I leave my phone on 24 hours a day. I have aldermen call me at 9 o'clock at night. It doesn't bother me. But you know what? We have people call me and go, hey, I see this truck sitting right there. Don't approach the truck. Give me an address. We'll follow up on it. I'll send one of my guys out, and our thing is we want to start being able to tow these vehicles again and get them off the street.
How many guys you think have been incarcerated since?
Physically sitting on the still, going to jail and spending time there. I know of, off the top of my head, I know of 11 right now. The one guy, like I say, we had 30 counts on him. We had another guy that actually caught within a block away. We were looking for one and found the other one too. and the one guy, they just, our Channel 4 did a news story on how bad he was dumping in the city, and Channel 2 did a news story on he was a young entrepreneur, you know, making a difference in Ladue. Well, yeah, he's doing landscaping. He's doing the landscaping in Ladue and dumping it in the city here. But again,
So with the sequester coming down, your feelings, I mean, you don't think that $105,000 that they granted we will receive and keep this initiative going with this task force?
well, that's what we were spending. Our average was, I think our block, our grant, we were getting like right around $300-something thousand
Okay.
over
The grant
X amount of years,
$300,000.
right.
Okay. So your feeling is you don't think it doesn't look too good?
Well, I was just up at the director's office, and she said, you know, we should have heard something by now on it, so.
All right, well, good luck, we need you, we sure do. Okay, moving to Todd. I guess we're spending like $5 million for electrical bills of street lighting to AMUE. Is that kind of, we're in that ballpark figure?
I think it's
Of
more
keeping the
like,
lights
I
on?
think it's 3, isn't it? I think it's 3 million.
Okay.
That's for alley lights, easement lights, highway lights, traffic signals.
I kind of remember when we were doing when we had that earnings tax initiative going, I thought we were spending about $5 million back then.
No, yeah, when we talked about earning tax, we spend about $5 million keeping the street lights on with the labor and the equipment and paying the electric bill. It's about a $5 million deal to keep all the street lights on in the city. That's the $5 million.
So we pay for alley lights too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what's the deal with the AMUE in the city of St. Louis? What's the agreement with these alley lights? Now I know we take care of the street lights, but you know, as aldermen, we've been told that AMUE takes care of the alley lights. Now, if the alley light goes out, gets knocked down, or what have you, does the city of St. Louis come out and replace it, or AMUE?
Ameren does. They're on Ameren poles in the alleys, or in the easements,
Right.
and Ameren owns them, and they maintain them, and we pay them a monthly bill for each one.
So what's the agreement, you know, what Ameren has with the city? Because I got a couple of lights, a couple of poles with no lights in them. And
Well-
I've been working with Ameren and the city and trying to get these fixtures installed.
You just need to call our office. You need to call, give Halsey those numbers, where you're at, the addresses, and he'll have them checked out. Steve's people keep an inventory on where they are, and Steve's people request the lights. It doesn't mean every pole gets one. Okay, we set the alley lights up to establish a minimum light level. That doesn't mean everybody gets one behind their house. If they want an extra one, they can pay Ameren, you know, a monthly fee to do it. But Steve's people will do that. Mike will be glad to take those addresses down where the problems are, and we'll get them repaired.
I got like the alley with 4 poles and no lights, you know, so.
The Board of Aldermen just passed a maintenance or a contract for us to work with Ameren. We actually didn't have a contract, and we were going back and forth with them. It was just in the last, I guess it was last time you guys were together in the fall, you passed it through.
On the decorative lighting, are you gonna receive any grants through BPS? Do you know if we'll get any grants for decorative lighting? Have you heard of anything? Or, you know, there's kind of a matching grant when those decorative lighters are putting in.
No,
You know, the federal government kicks in a certain amount.
the only kind of grant money that was ever available is like if you went to something energy efficient, they may make up the difference. That's how they handled our traffic signals, you know, 5 years ago when we changed all the heads out. They loaned us the money at a real cheap rate and then we paid them back. There's stuff like that. We recently received, two and a half years ago, we got $300,000 worth of energy money, and we bought LED fixtures for our Cobra heads. And we did a pilot. We bought 3 different brands, and we ran them out Natural Bridge from Grand Avenue to the city limits, and we ran them out Chippewa from Grand Avenue to the city limits. And the reason we did that was that technology is not proven yet. So we accepted bids, and we went out and we hung demos up, and we walked and we looked at the pattern they put out to see if they'd fit in our infrastructure. And we picked 3 different types, and we hung them out there. And we've been watching them. 2 out of 3 are performing very well. So, you know, I was just purely buy the material, and we had our labor go out and hang them up to see how they'd work. And to check them and see if we are paying half the electric. You know, because these salesmen tell you everything. Until you get it out there, you really don't know.
Are we having a problem with some of the city parks with the lights being on during the daytime? 'Cause I got 2 parks. Lights constantly stay on.
Well,
Ivy Prairie Park and Windjob Park, and, you know, I drive by, the lights are on. I don't know why. Is it a timing mechanism? Is it a problem?
something could be broke, yes.
Okay.
But I mean, if we don't get a report, we won't know.
Okay.
What were those parks? What were those?
I have Prairie Park, which is like Cabney and Bell, Clemens and Bell.
Uh-huh.
Wayne Giles is like Halderman and Maple, Skinker. You know, those like constants stay on.
All right. There's parts that'll fail in there and they'll stay on.
Okay.
Sometimes the guys are out there during the day testing them, but it'll only be one day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going out replacing the out bulbs because they can do it during the daytime.
This is it. As far as the dumpsters, you know, I've always, you know, given money for dumpsters. I understand what Alderwoman Crutzen is saying, and also what Alderman Finch is. You know, some wards just have different needs when it comes to dealing with their capital improvement. And I know we need to buy dumpsters and what have you, but sometimes you have to make a tough decision of paving the street, you know, fixing alleys, opposed to buying dumpsters. So, you know, it makes it tough. Makes it tough on them. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alderman Moore?
Last year I had a beautiful gray dumpster behind my house. And this year I've got a dumpster with holes in it, and I'm just wondering what happened to my dumpster. I opt out not to pay any money on the dumpsters because they can't tell me where the dumpsters are being placed, like the cameras. I'm insulted about the cameras not being told. I like Sergeant Hastings. We take rides, we go various places and look at these trouble hot spots. But I am totally insulted as being the leader of a community, don't know where the cameras are, as if I'm gonna snitch and tell the people where the cameras are. I do communicate with everybody in my ward, the criminals and all, letting them know that is actually zero tolerance from my aspect. But those cameras, I was promised last year, I think it was from 15 to either 15 or 35 cameras. How many cameras do I have, Sergeant Hastings?
At this current time, you have 8 up. We just pulled
8.
4.
And we chose not to have the recyclable bins in the alleys or whatever. I asked for 3 sets of recyclable bins on Newstead and Aldine, on Newstead and Ashland, on St. Louis Avenue and Marcus. And I've got them everywhere. I need more cameras. You can take those recyclable bins back, or we only use them for trash bins. So people are not, they use the ones on the street because it seems like they feel like somebody's gonna watch them if they start putting trash in. But when you put them in the alley, they become trash dumpsters. I need more cameras. And Sarge, if you guys don't get the grant, who's gonna monitor those cameras after you?
Alderman, I have no idea.
So we just gonna have more wasted money just sitting there snapping pictures and nobody monitoring.
I think we're gonna get it addressed one way or the other.
Okay. Patching of the streets. My budget was $220,000 this year. We sit in the office and they asked me for $480,000. So
Perfect.
So I'll go in debt, but it's perfect for you, but I won't pay it. We need those streets patched, and I'm wondering why I've asked to get them patched for the last 3 years, and I need them patched. Patch the street. I'm not going to put any pavement in the street that only have 5 houses in the block. It doesn't make sense. It's not good math. You know, that we would pave a street and it's map it where you're talking about from Newstead to Vanderventer has a line in the middle of it about 8 inches wide all the way down. That all we need to do is patch that and patch some of those potholes. You patch them in the winter even, and they need to be patched and not spend no $420,000 on the streets. You know, this is, I can see if it was Kings Highway or Highway 70. Those dumpsters that you have that we replace the lids on every year, I have requested and given you an idea, steal it, I don't care what you do with it, but to put on the edge of the dumpster metal. We can, whoever our manufacturer is, because the squirrels eat those lids up all the time, and we put that metal on the edge of those dumpsters, That squirrel he don't like the aluminum or he don't like the metal. Some metal he can't penetrate, but if it's aluminum, he won't do it. Just like some people know about the Brillo pad. If you put a Brillo pad in a mice hole, they won't bother. They will not eat that, and they're smart enough. So the squirrel is to me, is a cousin of the rat. He's a busy little character. He's eating every dumpster lid off, and with all we have, then we replacing them. But if we cap them, the two corners that they eat all the time, with that metal in a diagonal position, a diagonal corner, I guarantee you we won't have to spend so much money on these dumpsters like we've been spending every year. My problem is location. I asked for dumpsters. I opt out because nobody can tell me where my dumpster is going to be placed. I've requested this to take a ride or show me where the dumpsters are. And until that's shown me, I won't, I opt out to pay for dumpsters that I can't see. I've been asking for them for years and years, but it won't happen. One year I asked for where the dumpsters were, and they gave me a list of 1988 where the dumpsters were placed. And that wasn't even 98, this was 88, not 2008. And I thought that was horrible that, we had that type of data on something that we need to keep up with. I need more cameras, that's one of my main things. Well, I'm not finished yet.
I didn't expect you to be.
You're right. Do you have the arrests of the people on the cameras by ward?
I have a breakdown of what we have for your ward, because I figured you would be asking. So, let me find my notes here.
What's your home address? Where that bad can is?
You want my home address?
Well, you said the gray can was, now you got a holy one.
Okay,
I want to get rid of that Sunday holy one.
I appreciate it, but I would prefer getting them for the entire community instead of just the alderman. Alderman don't like. I don't even have my street patch and I have 5 empty buildings on my block because I don't want.
And Randy's
people
going to take a
thinking
ride with you. I can't believe you haven't taken Randy up on a ride, but Randy will ride.
How many rides did me and you took, sister?
I remember you. I met you on the street a few times.
right.
Some big holes you wanted to throw me in, but that was about it.
What you got, Sarge?
We got 8 arrests in your ward, counting the hazardous railroad ties behind your office. And we got actually 6 people right now that we're looking for, that we have identified. So.
Okay, well, I have some more hot spots for you later on.
Okay.
I won't take up the time in the committee, but I just want to ask one other question about the towing, and it might not be a part of us, but is Metropolitan Towing affiliated with the city of St. Louis? Were they ever affiliated with the city of St. Louis?
No.
So that operation was altogether different.
Yes.
So do you know what's happening to all those cars that was taken from the people behind those walls? Did they sell those people cars because there was a lot of illegal activity going? So I feel like they should have called everybody and gave them their cars back, but I think they got new car lots and used car lots with all the people cars.
I do not know any facts on that. If you want to talk about rumors,
So
after
the city is back towing instead of Metro now?
Right, all the towing that's been going on for the past several years is all handled by the tow division of the street division with our employees and our equipment.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Okay.
I had another hour, but
I appreciate
a lot
that.
of don't want to.
That's
Okay.
nice
A lot of don't want to hear it, so
Of course I do.
I'll let Antonio take over.
Afterwards.
Alderman French.
Thank you. We have quite a few questions. First, Todd, this committee sent you a request, an information request. You did not produce any answers to those, and you came today with some verbal answers, but it was a written request, and I think we expected it to be in written form. So let's go to those questions. Number one, we asked you for a complete accounting of all the funds generated by the trash fee approved a few years ago. Looking at the last few years, this thing went into effect in FY11. through the estimate for 2014 fiscal year, it will have generated almost $54 million. So the request was that. So I got that information through another source, was how much has it generated? The answer is almost $54 million, but then to
Yeah,
use
at the end of this
specifically.
current one they're working on now will have generated 54 is the guess, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the next question was, how has that money been spent? Okay, so that's really my real question, and that's what we're trying to get to the gist of, is how is that money being spent? Now, when that tax was being discussed, it was being sold as generating money for especially new services, specifically recycling in all the alleys, and for those wards, especially in North St. Louis, that were experiencing a lot of illegal dumping, these new cameras. But since then, I don't think we've gotten, especially on a regular basis, any kind of accounting of where this money is going and how much is being spent on these things. Can you give us that? Is somebody behind me?
No, I think that the budget division can speak to that. That money generated goes into general revenue, and then it's redistributed. So that 54 million you're quoting is not something that the street department gets. It purely goes into the general revenue budget, and it's redistributed through
No, I
this
don't think
method
that's
here.
true. In fact, in past fiscal years, it was even listed as a lump sum in your budget. You remember that? Especially those first couple of years when we were purchasing the dumpsters.
The revenue was not listed as a lump sum. Where it was going to be expended was listed in his budget.
And it gets sent over to, right, and those in those first couple of years.
The revenue is just, the revenue goes like all general fund revenue, goes into the city coffers for 1010. Now, there are specific items in the first couple of years, vehicles, recycling cans, some other stuff that was specifically set aside for that. But, you know.
So where has that money been spent? The money that was specifically set aside for refuse, for recycling dumpsters, for cameras? I guess what we're asking for is an accounting of where that's been spent.
Sure. So the first year, there was a $3 million line item appropriation that was set aside, and it wasn't directed for any particular account, and it was, the expenditures that year were approved by E&A. So, there was some concern about what it would generate. So the $3 million wasn't given to the street department to spend right away. It was given with E&A would approve it later. So the fall of that year, we started getting appropriations. I would present to E&A and tell them, hey, we want to go and buy several blue cans, and we went through the whole process, and we wound up expending $2.6 million of that $3 on blue cans and cameras. I can get you the sheet on where that went.
Sure.
Okay, and that was the first year. Then the second year, if you look at that budget, there's an appropriation in there for a little over $2 million. And that was spent on the rest of the cameras and some more blue cans to put in the wards. And I can provide that.
Have you purchased any additional blue cans or cameras since then?
Yes.
Okay. So can you give us in writing a breakdown of, the total amount of cameras, recycling cans, what you call the blue cans, that have been purchased?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously that was a controversial fee, new tax generated. It's generated a lot of money. That's $54 million out of the pockets of our constituents. It now accounts for about 35% of the total streets budget, which includes everything from streets, lighting, towing, refuse, even down to the Port Authority and the lateral sewer fund, and 90% of the total refuse budget. So I disagree with my friend from the 28th here, is that I think, maybe a few years ago that might have been correct, that the alderman had to tap into the capital improvement funds to get new dumpsters. But at this rate, our constituents are paying for every dumpster in our ward to be completely replaced every 3 years with new money.
Well, then I'm paying twice.
Well, let's talk about paying twice. So one of the things that I was upset a few years ago by was that when this new fee was implemented, my constituents are paying for it. So I felt that they're paying a new fee. I definitely wanted them to get a new service. And so the 21st Ward was the first Northside Ward to get recycling through every alley. Now the money that you allocated per ward was not enough to cover every alley in the ward getting it. And so I tapped into my capital improvement funds to make sure everybody got equal service. Only to learn at the next year's Ways and Means hearings that that was not something every ward was forced to do. And in fact, it seemed to the more affluent wards that some of the money from Northside wards that opted not to do the recycling bins, that opted instead to go with lower cost cameras, that they got their funds tapped to make whole wards like the 6th ward. And I think specifically it was the 5th ward, and at that time it was the chairwoman of the committee was from the 5th ward, so she was especially shocked to learn that her funds had been tapped to make another ward whole. So have we ever been, or is there any plans to make, repay us those capital improvement funds? Because not everybody apparently had to tap in to make theirs whole.
Right. So at that time, there was choices that were made by the aldermen. You know, the costs per ward were all different. You know, some aldermen, there was $100,000 spent to do a ward, make it blue. There was some wards where it was $220,000 spent to make their ward blue. And everybody had a different attitude about recycling at that time. There was the hell no's, and there was bring it as soon as you can get it. And the ones that wanted it immediately, they're the ones that stepped up and put their capital money in it to make it all blue, because they had a hard time justifying to their constituents how some of them get it on this side of the street and they don't get it on the other side. So they stepped up. It was a very new idea, and I was kind of glad that some of them wanted it and some didn't, because there was no way I could roll it out citywide. It took us 2 years to get the city blue. So it was a very convenient operational thing that some wards wanted it and some didn't. And that's the way it rolled out. Fair or not, if you put your capital money up, you were high on the list. You were number one. You were the all-star that was saying, I want to be blue. That's what you got out of it. Some of them chose just to pick boundaries. Do one side of the street. I believe Alderman Vaccaro might have done that. He picked out a little square and did it. I'm going to do everybody north of Chippewa and west of this street. So it was all their choice. There was no strong arming. It was, what do you want and how can we serve? And it was the late Alderman Carter that pushed me to do the cameras. He was the one that stepped up and said, damn it, we got a dumping problem, and if you're going to make it blue, we need cameras.
But
and
it
that's
wasn't-
why we rolled this out in that way.
But it wasn't the choice of those aldermen whose funds you tapped to make another ward whole.
So after the second year, everybody was whole. The whole city was blue. We had blue in the entire city. We have cameras that are spread out amongst the city. Okay? There was no operational way. I didn't have fairy dust to, you know, make it all happen in 6 months or a year. It's a deep process, and I don't think you appreciate the time it took to get this.
Well, I don't know if you...
It took 9 months just to get the camera specs right to buy it.
Let me finish it.
Okay?
Did you tap the 4th ward's funds to make another ward whole?
I
Because
don't.
he certainly did not spend as much on recycling bins.
I don't have those numbers in front of me. I don't know.
And so this is what I want you to understand, and even my friend from the 28th, is that if the 4th ward got their funds tapped the previous year to make another ward whole, then how are you going to come to them the next year and ask them to pay extra to replace terrible condition dumpsters?
I'm a little loose on what you're saying are his funds that were tapped, and where do you think these funds were? The funds used for this were general revenue funds, okay? They were not ward funds until you as an alderman stepped up and said you wanted more, okay? And I think there's several aldermen here that stepped up and said they wanted more, and they used their capital. It wasn't just you. I mean, I think, I'm seeing a few nods here.
Oh, yeah.
Several people wanted it, you know? And there was a couple here that said, no, stay out of my ward.
But you did tell this board that there was a certain amount of funds dedicated for each ward in that first year, right?
Right. Well, when you take the, the $3 million, and there's 28 wards, you're going to try to spend about $100,000 a ward. That's what's out there. That was a starting point.
Okay.
To kind of get some balance of how we're going to go forward. You know, I guess in hindsight, we should have had the aldermen vote and set an ordinance and tell us how to roll this out. But you guys left it to me and my department to try to figure it out, and this is the way we rolled it out. And I think we have an awesome program.
No, and I just want you to understand, though, that you can't on one side say this is everybody's money and we're going to move it around how we want to move around. But then when it comes to replacing dumpsters, you say this is only a 4th ward problem or this is only a 21st ward problem, and we have to find the monies to get that. Trash is trash citywide. And especially if our constituents are paying new fees, I think you should be able to replace every broken trash can in the city with $14 million additional funds every year.
Oh, that's not a problem for me. I mean, if you guys, the aldermen, don't want to buck up, then you need to find $1 million in general revenue to put in there. It's that simple. Or we're gonna have trash falling all over the alleys.
But see,
It's
I don't
that
think
simple.
you're not getting it though. We already spent 14 more million dollars a year now, just for you guys, just for your stuff.
No, you don't. You were spending $14 million a year 5 years ago on refuse. It's the same thing. The street department doesn't have any more money than they did before. We have a greater operation. We're a lot greener.
The tax that it comes on their bill every month says this goes towards trash and refuse. That's what it's there for. That's why they write the check. That's what they say it's for. That is enough to cover the entire refuse, or 90% of the refuse budget, correct?
The $14 million covers the majority of the refuse budget. Yes, it does.
That new revenue that people pay every month.
Okay?
So,
This replaces old general revenue though.
but it's new money. It is new money.
It is new money, so
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, moving on. So the blue dumpsters is one thing. Surveillance cameras, or whatever they are, the Polaroids you guys put up in the alleys here.
We're not using Polaroids.
They just take snapshots, right?
Right, they're like a deer camera. They take
Right.
a picture.
So quite a few of us has requested specifically where these cameras are on our ward, and we've been denied that information, correct?
I've only received maybe 3 requests from you where you wanted the cameras at, and I believe we went and put them out there.
No, sir. I asked you specifically where the cameras are in our ward. The 4th Ward Alderman asked where the cameras are in the ward. I believe a few other aldermen have asked the specific locations of these cameras in our ward. And you told me the same thing that Alderman Moore just said you told him, was that you can't tell us that information because we might let it out.
I did not say you might let it out.
You said-
I says, that's
What'd you-
not my
what
word
did
to
you-
tell you. That
What did
is-
he tell you?
You told me that you don't want the word to get out where the cameras are. I was totally insulted.
As was I.
Okay. Sorry I insulted
My
you.
feelings were hurt. You hurt my feelings, finally.
So why is it you're feeling that you should not tell aldermen where cameras are located? This is obviously a problem we deal with every day. It's not much you can tell me about illegal dumping. This is an issue we deal with every day in our ward. And the only problem, though, is that even though my constituents are now paying an additional $14 million a year, or the city residents are paying an additional $14 million a year, I can't tell them what one camera is.
Okay. Tell us where the problems are and we'll address it. That's
No,
my
what
promise.
I'm asking you is where the cameras are. And I'm asking you specifically right now why you will not tell us where our cameras are per ward.
Ron directs the people to hang the cameras. Ron knows where they're at and Ron deals with it. I don't want to know where the cameras are. I have enough to
we
do
do.
without worrying about your cameras. I have people that worry about the cameras. And Ron is the pillar of this
So
organization.
you're directing it to Ron. Let me
Yes,
ask
I
Ron.
am.
One thing, it's a criminal investigation.
Ron, let me first give you a little information. Is that several of us aldermen met with the chief about the situation. He made it clear that that is not his order for you not to tell us where the cameras are. So is that something that you made up, or who's telling you?
This has nothing to do with the chief of police. Okay, I mean, this is a federal grant. This is for the mayor's task force. You know, for years, I think they were under the impression, I don't know what chief you talked to, but they were under the
The chief.
impression, well, we just had Chief Isom.
There's only
we
one
had
chief.
Chief Dotson.
The current chief, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
The chief.
the current chief.
Yeah. I thought-
Okay,
yeah.
you know, it is a criminal investigation, one, and unless I just misheard you, you said there's no, you know, we can't even tell our constituents where these cameras are. Why would we want to tell our constituents where these cameras are, so they can move someplace else and dump there?
First of all, your question insinuates that my constituents are criminals.
No, I'm not saying.
And you're also insinuating that my constituents aren't the victims. Instead, they're the perpetrators. And as you know, many of the folks who are illegally dumping in our neighborhoods aren't even from the city.
Well,
So,
I
first of all,
have to disagree with you
I
there.
resent that question. And second, who do you work for? If you don't work for the chief, who do you work for?
I am a police officer. When I'm working here, I'm working for the city.
So the mayor?
I'm a independent contractor, all right, working a federal grant.
Independent contractor, Mark Federer. So which one of you guys has to set the policy to tell aldermen where cameras are located in the ward? Because if we're dealing with illegal dumping all the time, it'd be nice to know what resources are available to help catch the illegal dumpers.
The resource is there. Just send me an email, tell me where you want the cameras at, I'll forward it through Randy, then the list goes in, and Ron takes care of it. You'll get action.
So you're refusing to give us information?
You have not cooperated very well. You, in the last 2 years, have only provided us 3 locations for cameras, okay? If you participate in the program, you'll start reaping some of the benefits, okay? Just tell us where your problem areas are. Tell them where you want them, and they will show up. It's like magic. It's a real neat operation.
I think you've got the kind of a wrong way to think about this relationship with this.
I think so. I think you and I are oil and water. Maybe we
Yeah.
gotta go out sometime and talk about
I
this.
don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon.
Alderman, can I interject one thing? If you give me, let's throw an address out here. You get a problem with the illegal dumping in the 4500 block of, say, Ashland, or Natural Bridge. All right, if you get a problem with the illegal dumping in the 4500 Natural Bridge, you're requesting a camera. I guess my question is, where do you think we're gonna put that camera? We may not give you a specific pole of, 4510 Natural Bridge, but if we need to, monitor the 4500 block of Natural Bridge, that camera's gonna be within that area where we can monitor the illegal dumping. I mean, just because we're not providing you with the exact address
Or any
doesn't
address.
mean that we're not addressing the problem. So if you send me an address that's saying, hey, I'm having a problem at 4528, they're dumping on the vacant lot at 4528 Natural Bridge, we're gonna have a camera in that immediate area, to address that issue. So I'm not quite sure why you need the exact address of every camera.
Because I like to know what resources in our neighborhood. The same way, we don't make a secret. We have a very sophisticated surveillance camera system, and in talking to some of our contractors about the system that you guys invested in, I am very interested in actually how many convictions or even trials you guys gone to, because it's not a very secure system. It can be accessed, from a car by a Wi-Fi. It's not secure and probably wouldn't hold up in court. I don't think any decent defense attorney would be able to throw it out. So I don't know if it's the best investment. But let me ask you, Sergeant Hasty, you gave us a couple of numbers: 440 cases, 375 arrests. How many convictions?
On the convictions, we're right at 92% convictions. So,
Now, are these trials or are these pleas?
most of them are pleas. There is some trials, because everyone has a right to a trial.
Okay. Any idea of a dollar amount of fines generated? How much is this generated in fines?
Again, you know what, we had a problem with the fines. I don't keep track of the fines that we're generating. I mean, we can check with the courts.
Community service hours?
Community service hours, again, that's strictly up to the court. We were running, as I stated before, we ran into a problem where they were not giving the community service hours, or they weren't giving them the community service hours attached to the illegal dumping.
So in your role as an independent contractor, do you produce any kind of a regular report?
Yes, we turn a report into the director,
And what's
how
on-
many arrests we make, the hours that we work.
And any other follow-up as far as like conviction rate,
Right, we get with the courts.
anything
and-
about fines and community service hours?
Well, again, that's why we had the meeting, Alderman, to set this up with the courts.
All right, do you all make those reports available to the Streets Committee or anybody?
We haven't. We could.
Can you make that available?
Can't
We
we?
can start, yeah. We have no problem.
I think it's good to have some level of accountability. Are some measures of whether this is actually a successful program or a good investment?
Sure.
How many cameras are in the inventory now?
Actually, we have 121, the last count. We have 3 down for repairs right now.
Okay. But again, you will not tell us where those cameras are. Okay. So that's that question. All right, so with regard to dumping, there was a, So this one's for Todd. Todd, were you shocked when you saw the video of your employees illegally dumping hundreds of tires in North St. Louis?
Well, it wasn't hundreds, and no, I
It was a
wasn't
big
shocked.
truckload.
And I wasn't shocked. Unfortunately, I've been around for 24 years, and I've seen a lot of stuff. So, yeah, I know what happens. It's embarrassing, and we took action.
What has happened?
They both no longer work for the city.
Were they prosecuted or fined or?
Yes, they were
For charge.
prosecuted. One pled out, the other went to trial.
And what happened there?
He was found guilty.
Okay. So is this a ongoing situation? Do street department employees often dump?
I would hope not, Alderman. I would honestly hope
I
not.
think we've seen it before.
Hey,
I'm glad it got caught on camera
you want me to
finally.
tell you a video's not gonna show up today? I can't say that, okay? We had 500 employees in the street department. They're all characters, they all have lives, they all have things going on, you know? You never know. But, we don't take that lightly, we took action and we handled it.
All right, so there's two information requests. So the one, which is written responses to the email you received from this committee, you're gonna get that to us?
Sure, I'll deliver that to the chairman.
Okay. And the other information request about camera locations, you're denying?
Yes.
All right. We do have
Absolutely.
subpoena power, don't we, on this committee?
The board has it.
I think so.
But let me point out something about the request that I sent you. I cannot say it was an official request from the committee, because we did not, discuss it here at the committee and all endorse it. On occasion, all the people send me requests, I send that on to you, and I appreciated your response back. It simply is asking for additional information. But some of our committee members are looking around, what request? And that's what was sent. Sometimes a member of a committee may send it to the chair to send it out just because they feel they have a little bit more weight, and hopefully it does. I'd like to think I have a little bit more weight. As thin as I am, a little bit more weight in saying something. So we would, request, he's asking for additional information for you to send that on
I will.
to us as you can. I would like to also point out to the committee members, this is not the only time that we can bring departments in front of the committee. And so they're like, yeah. So get ready. I predate most of them here and can remember past chairs who would bring in committees throughout the year. And I think that there are a number of questions. So my point is, we don't have to try to get everything answered at this particular hearing and during this process of the budget. We can bring them back and get further information. So I know you'll happily come back up on our request.
No
Don't say
problem.
you won't. No, you will. So we're running really way behind on time. We had the Parks Department up at 10, and we're past that. So I'm not trying to restrict our committee members, I'm just pointing that out to us. We may have to reschedule them for another time. We don't want to, but just keep that in mind and continuing to ask your questions. So with that, I'd like to go on to Alderman Vaccaro.
I'll keep mine really quick. Do we need to try to find somehow $105,000 to put into the budget for the trash task force this year?
I have that on my list of questions that I'll have to talk to Charlene, the public safety director, about, to see where she feels that's going.
We'd have to know before, I guess, next week when we start to do our thing and put that stuff.
Right, I think I'll have that conversation with her today, and we'll see where we're at.
And then, I don't have a problem not knowing what candidate I probably tell. I can't keep anything secret, so I don't know. And then they move on. And so it's done, so you work as a regular police officer most of the time?
Yes, I work night watch, like last night I worked from 11 to 7, then I do this during the day. The agreement with the mayor's office, I keep my phone on 24 hours a day. So if an alderman calls, Alderman Boyd's called me at 9 o'clock at night, Bosley's called me at 11 o'clock at night, but that's the agreement. If I'm there to serve you, and if I can address an issue or have somebody respond out quickly to handle an issue, because illegal dumping is a low priority call for the police department, unfortunately, and a lot of times it's quicker for me to get a hold of one of my officers, have them call this person back and get it resolved right then and there.
Okay, my last question, not even a question. But I don't have your number. Can you put?
I
can
have
you put
cards
one in?
for you because I'm gonna leave them here so you can get ahold of me
Say it when
directly.
everybody's off. I got
Because
20
if,
of them.
like I say, if you call me and say, hey, I need cameras at this location, I will make sure that they get to the camera guy that does the install the very next day, and we will get it on the list for you guys to get them up where you get the problems.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Carter?
Yeah, I just have two. With the first round of cameras, how were they put out? Were they by request with the alderman? I'm just asking. Or did you guys, was it broken down by ward? I don't know.
Well, late Alderman Greg Carter, we worked real close with him about getting these cameras up, and it was, his ward was pretty much a pilot program. We had great success in his ward. I mean, we still have a lot of success in his ward. I think the main thing is I need to get with you and get some more locations. We just had a major landscaping gentleman that lives in your ward that was just dumping down on Lillian and Laura, and and he says, "Oh, I'm beautifying the neighborhood." Well, I've never seen beautifying the neighborhood quite done that way, but so he turned himself in and didn't want, tried to avoid the media as much as possible.
Yeah, and my second question is, how many people do we have to watch those cameras, to monitor the cameras, I guess?
I have 3 guys right now that do the downloading of the cameras. Then we put the cases together. Then we start tracking down the people.
Okay.
Unfortunately, a lot of times, these, like when we put the wanted flyers out, a lot of times these vehicles don't have license plates. We went as far as, I looked at one the other day that I'm looking at the license plate and I'm like, where is this license plate from? And then I started looking at more, and I realized that the guy had the license plates, the front and the back license plate upside down on his vehicle purposely. So all I had to do is just flip the picture over and we got the right license plate number. But for the longest time, I'm looking at it going, what's wrong with this license plate? A lot of times we have these gentlemen that use had their vehicles, these trucks, in their girlfriends' and their mother's names. So that takes a lot of time to track these people down and, get a hold of mom or get a hold of the girlfriend and say, hey, who's using your vehicle? And that's one more reason that we want to start being able to tow these vehicles again and put them on, impound them until they come in and let us know who is using their vehicle for illegal purposes.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. There are a few other aldermen here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have one question.
Surely.
About the gas tanks recycled. What about the gas tanks? What can we do about that?
Yeah, I wish we could
They're
get them on
nasty.
camera, yeah.
We gotta bust them and catch them for dumping them, and that's all we can do. It's similar to tires. We think if we work with Alderman Boyd's idea on the tires, that we can parallel that with these gas tanks and do some similar stuff. That's the new upcoming trend, of dumping. And we don't have an answer for that. We're picking them up.
Tires and gas tanks. We had a U-Haul that was literally dumping tires all over the second ward. So, and we thought maybe we'd get lucky and be able to track down the U-Haul who rented it, but unfortunately it wasn't. Here's some of my cards, so feel free to take them, call me, email me with locations, and we'll get the cameras up as, he's gonna sell them.
I'd like to give the other alderman just a few moments to ask a couple of questions. Schmidt has more seniority than you. Alderman Schmidt, did you have anything?
I did have a lot
You
of
can make it quick.
questions. They've all been asked. I would like to try to get his card. I do work with Sergeant Hastings from time to time. And, my issues are more difficult to capture because they're not always the big issues. They tend to be the smaller stuff that's thrown out there. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Boyd, very quickly.
I have several, hopefully will be quick answers. The recycling education, as far as recycling, how often are we trying to educate the constituents about the value of recycling, and how are we educating them?
So we do mailers, about once a year. I got to check with Randy. We're supposed to be putting something in the water bill here coming up shortly, and we have people available. If you have children or a neighborhood group you want somebody to come present to, we're available.
Okay.
Randy can set that up.
I just wanted to offer. I wasn't sure if you were doing it inside the water bills, but that's I think we should use other city resources when we can to leverage that. Real quick, can we, if we do the seizure of vehicles for illegal dumping, Ron, can we seize government vehicles? Other government, like the state or the postal?
I think we're gonna really run into a roadblock, especially US government vehicles. I think that's something that we would have to talk to an attorney.
All right. Towing, Todd, you said that we're doing all the towing. Does that include towing on behalf of the police department?
Yes, the police department calls us and we tow.
Okay, so we're doing 100% of tows in the city of St. Louis?
Lord, yes. Yes.
Okay. Have we resolved the overtime issue in the tow department?
Halfway, right, Claude?
Yeah, I think we hired a per-performance employee to kind of help some of the times when my folks would take vacation and that. There's always going to be overtime though in towing because you just 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, guys take vacation.
Okay.
It's a very small work
We
group.
tow 10,000 cars a year, so the overtime I think has been managed.
Did you say 10,000
calls?
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, he generates $3 million worth of revenue a year. We were on this revenue kick. $3 million of revenue a year is generated on
Are
that.
all the cars towed to Hall Street?
Yes.
Okay. Dumpsters. In light of the conversation with Alderman from the 28th and the Alderman from the 21st, I am curious as to how many dumpsters and roll-out carts per ward are out there. Can you provide that data? Because there is some disparity when you look at how you have to fund these, because in redistricting for myself, I think I have more geography, more streets and alleys than some other wards do, which means that I pay more for dumpsters and so on and so forth. So there's no equity in this equal distribution of the capital funds.
That was evident when we rolled out the recycling program, like I mentioned.
Paving, I'm trying to go real quick.
Sorry.
Paving, with the paving crew, you were saying that we don't have a lot for asphalt, maybe different aldermen are not paving as many streets and roads. Are those paper performance workers that do the labor for the paving? How do we keep them funded all year long if we're not doing as many streets and alleys?
No, we haven't had per performance people, many.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
So how do you keep them busy if we cut in half the amount of paving?
They're patching, they're paving, they're doing floodgates.
Okay.
We used to hire 30 or 40 limited term people.
Okay.
And that's the crew that's going now, would not be
Okay, all right. Electric bill, so you can pay Ameren to put up this bright light, and then you basically lease this light from Ameren. If you want additional lighting in the alley, you
For
probably.
the alley lights, yes.
But the customer pays Ameren. Who pays the bill for the extra light? Is that on the city?
If I understand you, we provide them, we pay the bills to provide a minimum light level in the alley.
Right.
That doesn't mean every pole. So there
Right.
may be an empty
Okay.
pole there that somebody wants a light on. That would be up to the adjacent property owners to pay that bill.
And Ameren gives us a credit for that? Because the
No, they
light's
would-
on our light bill, right?
No, they would pay that bill totally. The city would never see that on their bill. They would go after the individual.
Right, I know the city won't, but when you look at the alley, I'm assuming we're paying for all the lights that's strung along the alley. That's not what I'm
We
hearing.
may not be.
Okay,
So,
gotcha, okay. Dumpster, what I asked, because sometime I am concerned, I said this to Randy about the replacement of dumpsters. I would like to get an in-service sticker on all my dumpsters. So it says 2012. So I know that can was replaced in 2012. So I can feel more comfortable that the money was well spent. Not that I don't trust, but when I have to answer to my constituents about all these things, like I said, well, just look on your can. It will show you when you got your can replaced.
I know one of them does. Do they both do that, Nick?
They all put serial numbers, and we can look the serial numbers up.
Yeah, but I can't look a serial number
No,
up.
we
So if
can do that
had
for now. We can
stickers-
get a date on them.
Okay.
2013.
We can put a date in the specs.
Dumpster brackets. You know, we were having this big issue with thieves taking the dang on dumpster brackets, and so, and my recommendation is that we just weld them on. Why can't we fix that situation? Why don't we just allow them to be bolted on and then they just come and bolt them right back off?
It's an operational issue.
Okay, so that's something you can work on?
No.
Okay.
I'll explain it to you. You and me. You and I will talk.
Okay.
Well, we don't have a welder?
So I'm curious to know how much money is actually generated from the trash bills, and are we overtaxing the constituents over this? I understand it goes into all general revenue, but it's also my understanding when we passed that, we were only passing on the actual cost of trash pickup. That's all we were doing, not funding anything outside of that. And I know we're real creative with moving money around, but I want to make sure that it's all fair. And I know in the beginning we had to do all this rolling out stuff, so the cost in the beginning is more expensive than maintaining it. So
Right. So that refers to such as like the Hancock law and that, where you can't collect more than you're doing.
Right.
And we put a sheet together, we did 2 now in the 3 years, and we're okay. There's about a $3 million cushion in there.
Okay.
that Where the city's contributing to trash pickup. And when we take the refuse budget, we actually pull out all the service to the city buildings. You know, there's a lot of services that we do, picking up dead animals and that aren't part of what the citizen gets. So we got a
Okay.
spreadsheet we do, and we feel very
All
safe
right.
and confident.
Well, that's it. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd and Ron.
That completes us.
Are we done?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just want to remind you, so these meetings aren't so long, Mike Halsey is available. Day in, day out, he can answer a lot of these questions.
They're long.
Right, that's why.
I believe they are out here.
Did you look at the Department of Human Services?
Not in detail, no, I didn't.
It's a very interesting department that you might want to read.
Let me go ahead and get
It's
paused.
1169. Yeah, is the fund that's not in our budget.
Is there sweat in the chair?
The Tesco yesterday.
Perfect. But you know, I had colon cancer surgery last year.
I know that.
So I had to go this year just to make sure. Yeah, so now I don't get for 3 years. So that's good news.
Eliminated is
Colon
CPA.
cancer
I didn't
last
know
year.
where these
So I
monies
got
are
a
from.
follow-up
We need more seats.
surgery. There you go. Hey, Gregory. Hey, Greg.
Yeah. Yes. We're ready to reconvene our meeting. Alderman, I need a gavel. Our meeting is called back to order. Our meeting is called back to order. We appreciate it. We now have the Parks Commissioner in front of us. If you would just review your budget with us.
Sure.
Briefly, and then we'll go to questions from the committee.
Okay, thank you.
We are asked that you do speak into the microphone. All of us, just to remind us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation to talk about Parks 2013-14 budget. We're very pleased with the recommendations from E&A. As you will note, the budget this year is about for $21 million. That's a slight increase over last year. And while some may think that is for new programs or expanded services, it's actually going towards covering the cost of business. And more for insurance, more for other types of benefit programs. So the extra money is basically to allow us to continue to maintain the same levels of service that we have had in the past. As you know, we have several functions within parks, 3 divisions. The park division, responsible for basically grounds and building maintenance, the issuance of permits in the parks. The recreation division was responsible for the operation of our existing recreation centers, the summer program, playground program. The forestry division, responsible for the care and tree of street trees and park trees, and also 22,000 vacant lots and about 8,000 vacant buildings. And Soulard Market, public market, which actually makes more money than it costs to operate. There's some special programs. Operation Brightside, for example, is funded out of CDA programs. There's information included there on the budget with CDA. And then there's also the special fund budgets that are basically split up between the Director's Office and the Park Division, which provides for debt service for our rec centers, subsidy payments for our rec complex at O'Fallon, and park operations for Forest Park. Commissioners, did I do okay with that? All right. Yeah, we do have our 3 commissioners and our special rec program person, and Kathy Sullivan, who works in the director's office. So why don't you guys say hi? I don't know where you're at. We got Dan Skillman, Evelyn Rice-Peebles, they're camouflaged in the group. Greg Hayes, Forestry, Alicia Stelharn, who handles our special rec programs, and Kathy Sullivan. So if there's any questions, be glad to answer them.
Okay. Alderwoman Cruzen, I would just remind us that this is not the only time we can bring the Parks Department in front of you.
That's a refreshing note.
Okay. Alderwoman Cruzen.
No questions at this time.
Okay. Alderwoman Florida.
I have absolutely nothing highlighted in your budget, Gary. So I have no questions at this time either.
Okay. Alderwoman Behringer.
No, I actually have no questions at this time.
Yeah, basically, if you liked it last year, you should like it this year.
Alderman Williamson.
Just a few. The 22,000 lots that you have, vacant lots, and cutting those, and dealing with your part-time seasonal workers, how is that working out? I mean, is that a strain, or, you know, as far as the budget, do you have enough money to operate of hiring so many part-timers, or you hiring more, just the same amount or less, and your scheduling of cutting all those vacant lots, how is that determined, how is that working out for you?
All right, our goal is to cut, but Greg, go on, you can answer.
Sure. With our Alderman, with our resources that have remained status quo for the last 3 or 4 years, which we feel is satisfactory, if you will. To cut the lots, we cut them about 7 rotations a year, and that is 22,000 vacant lots. We hire about 90 individuals, and included in that 90 individuals are seasonal people, which are obviously additions to our staff. We do have a trim crew, thanks to the Board of Aldermen, who blow the material off the sidewalks, fire hydrants, and easements, so to speak, near vacant lots. So we feel it's been going well. Would we like to cut those lots every week, like we do our own homes, instead of every 3 to 4 weeks? Yes, but that is our capability for the last several years, and it seems to be going okay.
So you're still on a rotation basis?
Yes, and we
each ward of cutting the vacant lots?
Yes, and every time we start a new rotation, which just occurred within the last 2 to 3 business days, we send it to the Board of Alderman, Mayor's office, etc. So the aldermen know when we at least project. Now, the vacant lots as a sidelight, it's no secret, everybody knows the rain. We've lost about 28% of our vacant lot time because we absolutely destroyed the lots due to rain. So we're doing better on buildings, but lots we're starting to catch up as soon as we get some respite from the rain and we get some heat. So yes, we are in our second rotation on lots and buildings. We're a good part through. We're doing very well on those, but they're our albatross because they're very time consuming.
In dealing with our parks, some of our parks don't have any restrooms. I know we're going to implement these porta potties, is what I was told. So how is that working out? And what's the expense to the capital improvement? I could just take one park, for example. I guess you're going to put in probably 2 porta potties per park, maybe 1, I don't know. And I know you're going to put in a kind of a station, a 3-wall kind of center block kind of foundation to place those porta potties. What's the expense on that? I would say, through the 9-10 months of using those porta potties for a particular
The actual 3-wall construction runs us about $20,000. And then the rental on the toilets is somewhere between $75 and $100 a month per unit.
Okay.
And they're built to hold 2 units.
Okay. So then what would they do then? When they come back once a week, twice a week, you kind of...
Twice a week cleaning.
Twice a week.
Through our vendor, we get twice a week cleaning.
I think that's all I have.
Alderman Moore?
35 questions. Tandy, I'm asking about Tandy, the bathrooms in Tandy. What's going on with the bathrooms in Tandy? They still haven't been fixed yet. You promised me, Gary. You say you love me, but my bathroom.
I do.
My bathrooms don't show love.
I better ask my other partner, Love Dan Skillman here.
Well, as you may or may not be aware, improvements that we are doing in rec centers that, after we've expended the $9.5 million that we got out of the bond issue, we used to get funding out of the half-cent sales tax for our recreation centers for about $500,000 a year. Those were the funds that we used to go in and fix up things like bathrooms and so forth in the building. The last 5 or so years, I don't believe we've gotten an appropriation for the capital out of the half-cent sales tax for our rec center. So,
is there any funds left over out of the $9.5 million in rec center improvements?
No.
Okay. Thinking.
Okay, then we should shut that center down. The bathrooms are absolutely deplorable. No stools, no doors on the stalls, the antiquated urinals that ruin your feet when you stand there in the men's bathroom, rust coming out of the sinks, water not working, and it's just deplorable. It's an unacceptable sight, and I think that before we put the new air conditioner in, we got flooring, and then when we walked through with this gentleman that did the work in the building, they never came back. They were disgruntled and mad at me because I brought it to their attention that they needed to clean that up. They need to do a punch out and clean it up after they did the work. It was dusty, nasty, and unacceptable. And when you go in there now, you can walk and touch the walls, and there's nothing but pure dust that continues that gets disturbed and settle all over the place. They have a lot of people going in and out of that center. That is a very busy center. And we need to get that cleaned up, and these guys need to be made to come back and do what we call punch out, to clean this place up. Because it's extremely dusty. They did a good job on the showers and all. It took them long enough, you know, but they finally got it done with the stairs outside. But we need to get that building cleaned up, get the dusting out. And the Tuskegee, in the same place at Tandy, my fencing has been compromised several times. Behind the scoreboard, there's a hole in the fence where the kids walk through. You can stand up and walk into the field. That is a synthetic field made out of plastic with rubber granulars. There's kids out there smoking weed, drinking beer, having parties in it. It's not secure. And I'm gonna get on BPS because we paid $15,000 to have cameras to monitor that field, and to no avail, because sometimes they take the little metal clips off and lay the entire fence down on the east end of the field. So we want that taken care of. Rumbo Park, I need my walking trail striped, and you cannot play softball in a field of water.
That we can't help you with.
You can help me with that.
We can help you with the walking trail.
What about the softball field?
I'll pray that it quits raining.
Even before it rained, Gary. We call it, it's the name of the park, and we need security. It's the name of the park in the neighborhood is called Walgreens Park, because they sell more drugs than Walgreens in that area. And we need that cleaned up. We need some type of the marshals to ride and look around and make sure that this park is safe and secure for all the constituents, and especially the young kids that use it. They can't even get on the playground because of the dope dealers sitting there on the all the equipment that's there for the children. On my lots, I have 1,900 when I got in office empty lots. Grass growing 2 to 3 feet tall. I walked by one lot yesterday and the grass was, I'm 5'11" and 3/4, so just a 6 foot tall man. But the grass was taller than me.
What's that address?
I will wait until he's finished so he can hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, what's the address of that lot?
It's 1,900 lots, period.
No, where the grass is 6 feet tall.
Gary, it's just about all over my ward right now.
So your whole ward is 6 foot tall?
Yeah, just about the majority of it. One side. What happens is when you do the rotation, and by the time you finish, it's high on that side again.
I agree.
And it's absolutely deplorable. Now, we have on North Market and Marcus on the southeast corner where the grass was 6 feet tall. You cut it down and it's lying all out in the street. Has the city sidewalk block. It looked better when it was just standing up. Then if you go to Martin Luther King, a major thoroughfare, and Newstead,
You getting this, Greg?
it's laying down on the sidewalk and out into the curb. They're not blowing it. They're not picking it up. They're just dropping it. Sometimes they come.
MLK and what?
MLK and Newstead. But I can, all throughout the ward. But those are just two that I've just observed yesterday, so I went home to keep from stressing.
I'm gonna drive by there when I leave here.
I'd love to ride with you sometime.
Come on.
And Greg, the alley foliage that we have, remember the time we rode through the alley?
Yep.
And we couldn't get down the alley because there was so much grass and foliage sticking out until we had to back out. You got out one time and took a toilet out of a hole when we was riding because of the deplorable conditions of our alleys and that foliage is grown in the 4800 block of starting at Cobriant and go all the way to Greer. From Cobriant, 4800 block between Marcus.
Cobriant.
Between Marcus and Euclid.
Okay.
And you take Cobriant, you take Leduc, Northland, Hammett, Couples, Maffitt, St. Louis Avenue. You can't see the forest for the trees. It's just blocked off. It's just growing on both sides. We need to really get that cleared out.
Yeah, we can work on part of that. Part of that is the private property owner's responsibility. So if it's a private property, we need to notify the owner to do that. but we'll make sure that it gets opened up to the point where you can drive through.
It's more ours than theirs, Gary, but you know, whatever you can do, we appreciate
I
it.
understand your problem.
Yeah.
I sure do.
Okay, what about, can we bail on those lots? I've been asking about that for the longest. You know, if you look at, I don't know what cows eat. You know, it's surely not healthy because we're getting sick and all. So if you go to the graveyard, the Calvary Cemetery, they bail all their stuff. It's just as high as ours. And we have the tractors. Why can't we bail that stuff? Is that something we got the wrong type of grass or something?
Well, we could bail it, but that was broached as a possible board bill a year or two ago, and I came up with some figures I could get my hands on. If we're given a couple, first of all, it's environmentally, it's friendly to leave the stuff on the lots. Things do get high, but if we get a couple, $2-3 million extra dollars, yeah, we could hire maybe 100 more people and have them bail the lots, but it's just not feasible to do. As long as I know stuff gets high again. My pet peeve is misses. Did we miss a property? But of course stuff's going to get high. But to answer your question, I do not think it's practical, and I do not, with all due respect, I do not think it's a good way to go.
And with all due respect, you know, I have a lot of respect for you guys, especially Gary. He's my favorite guy in the entire city. So
Most of the time.
I like the color suits he wear. But anyway, when those lots are cut, personally, I would prefer you leaving them alone. If I could opt out of that, I would let the grass grow 10 feet tall. Because when you cut them at 4 to 6 feet, it is the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And the next day, it turns brown, and it begins to tumbleweed. So some people try to keep up with their property, and that's why we did this board bill. Some people attempt to keep up with their property, but when you got this stuff blowing all day, 10, 15 lots on a block, blowing up and down the street, it's a very deplorable looking condition. So it's an ugly sight, and I know you like you said, you like to cut it every day, like we do our lawns once a week.
Right.
But we've got to figure out something, because the rotation that I'm getting is not satisfying. You know, I go from buildings to lots. Now they're killing me about the lots. The lot next door to my house only is i.e. me.
Brett, when's the last time we cut Ward 4?
We just got out of there on
Did it just
lots
come out?
just recently. So if those specific ones, I'll drive them myself as well as soon as I leave here and look at those.
And you're gonna look for the grass and the sidewalks and stuff?
That trim crew those trim crews, there's 8 two-person crews. They are paid to follow up, hopefully within the same day or next business day. So if you have egregious issues, I'd be happy to check them out.
It sounds good. It definitely sounds good, but in the end result, when I leave here today, and if we had this meeting next month, I'm going to be stressed as heck because of what goes on in that community. It's just not enough. You know, as much as we can talk and as friendly as we can be to one another and casual and cordial, it's not solving my problem.
I wish I had a magic wand to make them look as beautiful as I'd like them as well.
I think it takes a little more consistency than magic, but, you know, I'm going to leave that alone because I want to maintain what little bit of help I'm getting. I want to keep that, so.
I understand.
Okay.
We don't play that way.
I surrender.
Okay. Alderman French.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have any specific requests. You guys do a pretty good job of responding.
Excuse me?
I said you guys do a pretty good job. Dan takes good care of us over in the park. Dan, what are the amounts that each Metro Park is getting this year?
I don't have this particular breakdown with me.
This is what you need, Dan. We got the regional parks, but I think the neighborhood park stuff is still getting worked out, isn't it?
Yeah, the regional parks are
The regional park?
Yeah.
O'Fallon Park this year, the major park they have sent is 190,000, and out of the metro parks is 45.
Okay.
And then out of the new Prop P money, 77,000.
How many parks are there? The metro parks, or the large parks?
There's 6.
What are those 6?
Fairgrounds O'Fallon, Forest, Tire Grove, Frontelet, and Wilmore.
What's the last one?
Wilmore.
One more. And Tower Grove. Do you have the amounts of each one of those, how much all those are getting?
Sure.
Yeah, and,
You want us to,
Yeah, if you could.
you want me to just make you copies and send it to you all?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, basically, the formula is it's distributed by acreage. So whatever the acreage of the park is, you get an equal percentage of the funds available.
So let me ask you about Tower Grove. How much is Tower Grove getting?
I'm gonna have to, I don't have Tower Groves because they get their money directly. It doesn't come through us. You have them?
Yeah, Ed might be able to.
So is that
help
the
you.
700,000 in here?
Yeah, they get two sets of money. They get a operating stipend out of the general fund.
That's the 700. That's for operating, Alderman.
Yeah, and then the capital budget lists what they get for the major parks, capital improvement funds, the metro parks, and the new metro parks money from page 88 of the capital budget.
Okay,
But
Jed.
it's totally, Dargo Park for FY14 will get 566,000.
566 plus the 7, so 1.2. Okay.
Yeah.
So Gary, that's my question. Is that fair that the Tower Grove Park gets 1.2 million in large parks and North St. Louis only get a few hundred thousand?
Yeah, the formula that we've used has been around, gosh, since the half-cent passed in 1994. That was passed legislatively. Yeah, I don't know how else you do it. I guess you could base it on need, how much capital need comes out of each park. But I think it's important to note, in the case of Tower Grove, most people don't even know that that park isn't run by the city. The perception is that's a city park, and the only folks that know that it's got a separate management system and maintenance system is probably the folks sitting in this room. So, it's a public facility, it's well operated, well run. It's the second largest park in the city, and it serves a big purpose for a very diverse community.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tower Grove Park too, but I know that I can only imagine what Fairground Park could be or O'Fallon Park could be if over a 4-year period they got $5 million like Tower Grove does. So I think that's something that is not equitable, and maybe the committee should take a look at that one day. Now, let me ask you, before you leave, this is the Ways and Means Committee. We look at the finances, supposed to follow money. So I think we'd be remiss if not to ask you about the indictments we read about in the last few days. So
I've
what
heard
is
that word frequently.
What has happened and what is happening with the funds over there in the Parks Department?
First of all, let me do this. Most of you probably already have this. This is the indictment. And
I don't have it.
okay, it was posted online. I made 11 copies. Okay, if you don't need one, pass it around. Basically, the information that we have is in this document. We were made aware of the investigation probably 3 weeks ago. We had not had an inkling of any improprieties until that point. I need to point out, by the way, this is an active investigation, so there's more to come possibly. But I mean, several points I'd like to make. How this happened is in there. We're still trying to figure out internally exactly how this was done. But these, where the 2 people indicted were 2 long-term city employees. In fact, my guess is most of you know both of them, and certainly one of them. They have combined experience of over 45 years. And needless to say, we're extremely disappointed in what happened in their performance and our inability to catch it. But to that point of inability to catch, it's been stated that this was a very involved scheme, one that was well camouflaged. Gosh, I tried to count the number of times we've been audited since 2005, when this started. We were audited in 2008 by the state. And my question was, why didn't we come up with this? Why didn't auditors, people who are trained to find it? And that's no criticism. Based upon a conversation we've had with the FBI and what the U.S. attorney said on the news, this is something that wouldn't have probably popped up unless some employees within the park division provided some information to get it started. So that's kind of where we're at with it. I can say the FBI visited several of our employees yesterday, and I plan to meet with them next week. So in a nutshell, that's it. But if you read this and you can figure it out, let me know. Once we find out what's going on, and this may not play out until the investigation's complete and we have all the information, we're certainly going to do whatever we can to put measures in place to prevent it in the future. And the comp, by the way, the FBI will be talking to the comptroller to answer the same questions. This is the information we've had, how it happened, and what can we do to fix this. It's been a pretty positive give and take with the FBI, at least from our standpoint.
No other questions? Thank you.
Alderman Vaccaro?
First off, you guys do a great job. I'm sure with that. I just.
Who said that?
Huh? I know. Well,
I think all the French said that.
And then the other thing, you tell everybody, I thought you only loved me, so.
I love everybody. You know that.
I really didn't have any comments, but I did want to address the baling, only because I'm an old farmer.
Mm-hmm.
It takes multiple days to bale hay. You got to cut it, and then it's got to lay one side to dry, then you got to turn it. Because if you bale wet hay, it molds and it's useless. This is about a 3-day process, and you got to make sure that you got 3 days of sunshine to bale hay.
I've learned so much in the committee, though.
From watching employees, I mean, well, you'd have to throw them away. You could bail them and trash them, but I just was, and then, you know, I had the car wash. We had like 10 employees, and we'd sit there and watch, and just, it's impossible. You can't be responsible for every person on the planet. It just doesn't happen, even in a small operation. And that was really it. I didn't have anything, just addressing the two things.
Alderman Porter?
No questions.
We have a few others. Did you have anything? I believe you have the most in your.
Okay.
Do you have a Schmidt is there? Pardon me. Do you have a few questions?
So it looks like on the indictment that these are invoices that they routinely increase. So is there some kind of function where people in the office look at those invoices routinely?
We don't know.
Because there might be some accounting function that could be there in terms of approvals, and maybe they were the people who were supposed to.
Well, I mean, Alderman, as I said, we've been audited 20 times, and auditors' jobs are to find something wrong. They've recommended numerous things for us to implement. We've implemented all of them, but still we got a problem. And I mean, in order to get to the bottom of it, we're going to need the full packet of information, and there's possibly, believe it or not, the possibility that regardless of what safeguards we put in place, the manner this was carried out would have never been detected.
But somebody else might have to approve when invoices seem like they're...
They do.
All right.
Yeah.
Dana Foster is now the part-time rec director since the old rec director died at Marquette.
She's not part-time, she's full-time. She's the aquatics manager, and she's the full-time director at Marquette Rec Center.
So if I go over there, I'm going to see Dana Foster?
She's either going to be there or checking on the swimming pool. She's full-time.
Full-time at Marquette?
Full-time at Marquette.
Because I haven't seen her yet. I go over there. I've never met Dana Foster yet.
I will make sure that she meets you. But she's full-time.
Because, and I know that we work together frequently because the area in Dutchtown and Gravois Park has some of the highest concentrations of youth. 35% of all males in Gravois Park are under the age of 18 years of age, which is just like the highest percentage in the entire city. So we keep trying to figure out creative ways to get them, obviously, from the park at Gravois Park over to Marquette Park, and we haven't yet really figured out how to do that. When I was growing up, of course...
We walked.
We walked. But the situations are different because people don't necessarily feel comfortable walking in other places these days. So I know that the Violence Task Force on Youth and the Community Health Improvement Plan, the accreditation process and so forth are all looking at these issues about youth violence and trying to make sure the health of our community and so forth. So, you know, obviously the monies that these gentlemen, who I had a great deal of respect for when I was working with them, those monies could have helped these kids, you know, get to the help that they needed. So, but I'm still trying to figure out creative ways to get them to our park.
And Alderman, I am too. I met with Clint Fowler on Friday. And we're just trying to figure out what we can do that doesn't duplicate, that helps stretch. And I understand how your heart bleeds for these youth, and mine has to bleed citywide. Citywide, what our youth are facing is no less than a war. And so I am in complete agreement with you. We need to do what we can.
I'm trying to get a sense on this bond issue situation. I had asked the comptroller because Forest Park has their bond now. But we have yet to issue bonds for our individual neighborhood parks. Is that true? We haven't issued those parks. Correct. Do we have some sort of sense of what we're waiting for or how that's going to happen?
At some point, we need to engage the comptroller on that. I guess one of the questions we have to look at now, that bond issue would have generated $34 million over 30-year period. With the receipt of the new Metro Parks money, that's another $2.5 million a year. That means we basically doubled the amount of capital that we have available to spend on an annual basis, $5 million a year. That's a pretty nice piece of change to start addressing our needs. One of the debates that we need to have when things settle down is would it be better for us just to spend at the rate of $5 million a year now rather than buying the money? I'd welcome your input on that too. And I know we have an ordinance that authorizes the issue of the bond. On one standpoint, you're saying, well, you know, we could borrow the 30 and we've got $2.5 million to spend on a year-to-year basis. That would be a plus. With the 30, we could address some of our major needs quickly within 3 years. But then we only have $2.5 million to spend for 30 years. So it's a debate I'm having with myself, if you will. And if you've got any comments, please share them with me.
No, that's helpful to know, and I think we, as a group, should probably look at that. I do want to give out, I know that Evelyn Rice-Peebles talked about working with Flint Fowler, and I appreciate all those partnerships. I do want to give kudos to you for the partnership with Playtime Rec, so that for the first time in many years, starting last year at Marquette Park, we now have Saturdays where kids can come and use that facility, and so that's terrific.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. On the grass and weeds and that sort of stuff, part of me was very pleased that the 20th Ward was getting hit early in that rotation cycle, and part of me had my heart falling because I knew that it hadn't yet grown very high, but now everything is really tall. We don't have the next rotation. I don't know if anybody else has the next rotation. I don't have a clue, so when people holler at us, I mean, if you can just send those to us.
Right here, I'll send copies today. This came out yesterday or Friday afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, Greg, I thought you sent those out to everybody.
He does,
We do.
but I don't think I got mine yet.
This just hit, so yeah, you're scheduled for projected May 28th. But the-
Yeah, and keep in mind with these schedules,
Right.
if it rains,
Yeah, I know, but just knowing that maybe by the first part of June, I can hold out that long and give people hope is helpful.
Absolutely, you'll be taken care of.
That's all I have.
Okay. Just a few from Alderman Boyd. That's a hint.
This is
Yes, sir.
always the fun department, I call it. They get more accolades than any other department, and they do a great job, so it says something for the department.
thank you, sir.
I'm gonna go real fast. Greg, how much more money do you need for leaf blowers?
Leaf
'Cause
blowers,
all the crews don't seem to have leaf blowers.
all trim crews, all 16 should have one on them, but they're only a couple $100 a piece, so
Okay.
I will find that out.
All right, because we dealt with that a few weeks ago. And welcome back, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, that, Alderman, that's probably something we can deal with internally.
Okay.
Right.
So Greg, if you check on that, yeah, it's just like the bathrooms at Tandy,
Okay,
that's something we can get cleaned for.
Here.
I'm sorry.
How much is LRA contributing to Forestry?
Well, there's an individual sitting behind you, Ed, Mr.
Ed.
Bess. I'm not putting Ed on the spot, but I'll answer your question. It's been very sporadic. Occasionally, I'll see $225,000 given from LRA to us, but it's not $225,000 extra to our $1.3 million. It's included in the $1.3 million. So we're never getting extra to handle our problem. But Ed always knows if they've kicked in. Some years they do, some years they do not.
So in this budget right here, do you know how much is in this budget, Greg?
I do not know if LRA is
Ed,
part
do
of
you
that.
know?
No,
Okay, well, that's very disappointing to hear, Greg, because our intent several years ago was that it was a bump up so that we can get better services out in the neighborhood. So that's just a thing that really bothers me when we think we're doing something great for our constituents, but then the money just get magically moved to different places, which is truly unfair.
If we had that additional money, we could do more frequent rotations.
Absolutely. Okay, and then with the budget, on page 74, the subsidy for the recreation center, I'm assuming that's O'Fallon, it was 700,000, I guess this current year, and we're looking to bump it up to 1.2. And is that because we don't have enough paid memberships? Why are we almost doubling it?
Yeah, basically, when we did the original performa for the O'Fallon Park Rec Center, it indicated we would need $700,000 to operate it. That was based on a $1.4 million budget. So basically, 50% of that budget would have had to come from sources other than memberships. As we know now from operating these centers, the budget's more like 1.2 million a year, excuse me, 2.2 million a year. So in order to cover that, in order to provide 50% subsidy, the number went up. So, you know, it shocked us when we looked at the numbers, but it's consistent with what our original performer indicated, and that the facility would need a 50% subsidy, and that's basically what we're giving them.
Okay, a couple more questions. Okay, on page 76.
By the way, Alderman, the center's doing extremely well.
Good.
I think we have 1,300.
Yeah, it's above projections.
Yeah, I mean, every time I'm up there, the building's filled. It still looks like the day we walked in it. So we're very pleased with the way it's working.
Do you have a handle on how many non-residents have membership there, by the way?
Alicia, do you have?
I mean, you don't have to tell me now, but I'd be curious.
Yeah, we
about
can find that out.
Okay, on page 76, the recreation assistant, did we just move, what's this? 200, you requested 216, originally we had 109. And was this person moved on page 79? Is that the same person or position?
No,
Looking at recreation
catch up with you
assistant.
Okay, would you say that again?
Is that in Rec Division's budget?
On page 76, it's in the Director of Parks, Recreation, and
That's
Forestry,
Alicia.
210. You're asking for 2, I'm assuming, because it practically doubled. No, you're getting it. My bad, you're getting it.
We have recently taken, we've taken over the operation of the Cherokee Center.
Okay.
So we do employ more part-time people to take care of our programs that are in there, in addition to the after-school programs we do in conjunction with SLPS and our
Okay.
summer program. So we do hire more staff for the summertime to ramp up for the kids being out of school.
So these are recreation assistants, not assistant.
Right, they're recreation assistants, they're all part-time positions.
Okay. So there's a bunch of them in there, and then you added them to Division of Recreation. So how many are you adding all together?
I operate, I believe, with 17 rec assistants. But instead of having any full-time staff with benefits and everything, we actually operate with all part-time staff. So it's actually a savings.
Okay, and Evelyn, real quick, are we running any special programs at any of the parks? I know you have your brochure out with summer camps, but are we running any additional programs out in the neighborhood parks?
No, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, most of the park programs, I think you do Wilmore, Evelyn.
Oh, I'm sorry, Wilmore and Lindenwood, we have our
Yeah.
summer day camps.
Yeah, but we also, do you have the, did you bring enough brochures for everybody?
I actually ran out. We're in the process of printing
Way to go,
more.
Alicia.
I gave them out to the citizens. I couldn't help it.
Yeah. We run a number of two-week sports and cultural arts clinics. They cover a number of parks. Regretfully, we didn't bring that, Alicia.
We can.
I'm reprinting.
Oh, well. Do you have Alicia's stuff?
I do, yeah.
There you go.
Gary, this is my last question. We've done this once before years ago, but is there money in the budget to have a day camp program out at Bear Brothers Park? You know, we put the pavilion out there. There's electricity for, you know, doing different things. Because that came up at a community meeting over the weekend, and I said I would check into it.
Yeah, you know, I think we tried one over there several years ago, and the response we got wasn't really good.
Okay.
We've done a lot better with these sports camps. I mean, we pre-register, we're getting 60 to 100 kids in most of the camps, and it seems that that's more geared to what the old playground program that you and I grew up with. It seems to better meet the kids' needs. And we might try doing some of these sports camps over at, did you say Baird Brothers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Baird Brothers.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Alicia, if you would follow up, I'd appreciate it.
And there's an online link on the city website where you can actually sign up for all of these camps online since they're free. You can go to stlouis-mo.gov/playtime. We have 42 different camp offerings across 11 different topics.
Okay, that completes you.
The blue color
Unless you ran out
brochure
of.
is our fall brochure. The white brochure is our summer brochure in the folder, and then the orange and green one is Playtime, which is the programs Alicia speaks.
Alderman Williamson, you had a real quick one.
Yeah, real quickly, this is for Dan and you too, Gary. And I have talked to you, Dan, about it in the past. I'm going to the World Center, the men's and the women and the boys and girls locker room. That's an old center. I guess it's probably almost 60 years old now. And I know, I guess a couple of years ago, it received about $1 million.
$3 million.
$3 million?
$3 million.
Okay, and I'm getting a lot of complaints with that facility when it comes to the locker room, the heating, because it's old. And I talked to BPS. 'cause I
We
know-
did put some
Yeah, it's got a new
additional
boiler.
heaters in this past year
Yeah.
in the locker rooms after your request.
Is that a
After
winter
my
complaint?
request, yeah, okay, so it has been
Yeah.
done.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, very good. That's a great job.
Alderman Ogilvy, did you have a quick question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you say one question?
I said quick.
Brief comment. The discussion when we passed that bond issue, or authorized the bond issue, that there was, I think, over $50 million in existing capital needs in city parks.
Over 100 million.
Over 100 million, thank you. So there may be, in my opinion, we may want to use some of that bonding capacity to really to deal with some of those larger projects, I think. My other question was, St. Louis County, their highway department is working on a project called the South County Connector, and their environmental impact statement is out right now, it's in a comment period. A portion of this new roadway is in a St. Louis City park, and part of our charter requires that when we lease or sell or do a number of other things in the city park, it requires a public vote to authorize that. In your opinion as Parks Director, do you think this St. Louis County project is a project that would require a public vote in order to do the construction?
Yeah, we think it will. We're looking at that now. I mean, needless to say, we're still in the planning stages. The good news about the switch, we give up, I believe, 2 acres, Dan, and get back 5 acres of non-park land, which it seems like a good trade. So I think it's a saleable issue, but once we get a little farther down the road in planning and firm that up, then we'll have a discussion with the city councilor's office to see if it needs to go to a vote, but we're assuming now that it will.
Okay. Thank you. I believe that completes our questioning from the committee. We done? Okay then. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
River to Pier Park.
We do have one other. So, let me go see if I can find them.
Welcome back, man.
Thank you. I am sorry I missed the Arbor Day. I heard it went well.
Because you expanded the Board of Commissioners.
Our meeting is
I'm just
now
saying,
called
that's
back to
how he says
order. do now have the health department before us. And you're seeing the cameras, that's a little bit different. We took a portion of our committee this year and had public hearings and took even public testimony about the budget. That's something new the committee is trying. We had lots of requests about people being interested in continuing to see the process. And so then we are having it recorded and streamed here today. It was our hope to have been across the hall in the Kennedy room, but it was already reserved. So we know it's a little tight, but just bear with us on this. So we'd just like for you to review your budget as you've done in the past, and then we'll start taking questions from members of the committee.
Thank you. Our budget's pretty straightforward this year. We didn't get everything we asked for, as usual, but we did get more than we got last year, so we did have an increase of about $500,000. That enabled us to keep a focus on lead and asthma prevention that were initiatives that we've started under federal or local grant funds that have since, programs have since ended. So we were able to get use tax for a couple of those positions. A couple of things that we did not get initially in the budget were funding for the Community Health Improvement Plan, the severe weather program, about $83,000 to upgrade our Microsoft from 2002 to the 21st century. We didn't get 2 full-time animal control officers, 2 full-time vet techs that we asked for. But we have been working with the state on the core functions contract, and they are willing to fund the CHIP and the severe weather protection program for the next couple of years through our core functions contract. And we can restore a sanitarian that was going to be cut, a vacant sanitarian that was going to be cut in our budget. So I've informed Paul Payne, and he said he would get you that amendment. Those positions are in the budget, but we just need to change the funding source from use tax to 1166.
Okay.
And then our budget's in, pretty good shape. I'm happy to not have layoffs. Want to add anything?
Anything?
This year, as you well know, being a part of the Region 7's Health Equity Council, we were able to creatively receive some funding. We have a funder lined up to assist us with continuing our work on health disparities and health equity. So you'll be seeing more of that. We received through Washington University. They're providing us with a website where our 4 states can access, put information out there about activities related to health disparities. We've also completed our we're conducting an environmental scan across the 4 states to really see what should we be looking at as it relates to health disparities and really prioritizing those items. We've completed the blueprint for action, which will look at the 4 states, and it's on the website, and I will need to forward that to you, Alderman Kennedy, of the blueprint. And the 4 states include Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri. So, and I've chaired that for the past 2 years. So my legacy there will be that we completed the blueprint, we completed the environmental scan, and that we were creative. We were the first region to be able to do that, and utilizing the Masters of Public Health students from Washington University to assist us with this. And we're thinking about developing a youth component as well. And this work is being conducted through the National Partnership for Action through the Office of Minority Health at the federal level.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And when you see the travel funds in our budget, that's what they're for. Commissioner Moore's actually the chair of that initiative. So we made a commitment to cover her travel and expenses to continue that work.
Okay.
Otherwise, we don't go anyplace unless somebody else pays for it.
Pays for it, right. All right, questions from committee. Alderwoman Cruzen, any questions?
Not at this time.
Alderwoman Florida?
The only thing I'm curious about, we're primarily grant funded, and I'm just wondering about the sustainability of what we're doing, and I'm wondering how, with grant funding being depleted, have we looked at this from a short-term, mid-term, and long-range, strategy on how we're going to continue to do this?
Yeah, the federal sequestration cuts, the collective impact of those across the board are going to have a very devastating impact, particularly on children most in need, and it's a very great concern to me. We just got a budget that shows that it's primarily a 5% across the board cut. You've got organizations like CDC who have committed to pass it down as a 5% cut. You have other organizations like HRSA that are trying to figure out how to only cut themselves 2% and us 7 or 8%.
Okay.
A specific example is our Ryan White contracts. We get $5 million on average for Ryan White and prevention. Those contracts started in March. That grant started in March. They gave us a third of our allocation. We've met with all of our subcontractors. They began running out of money June 13th, and it's completely gone by September. And we cannot get an answer out of HHS when they're going to give us our final allocations. I've had our congressional delegation ask, and we'll get back to you maybe at the end of the month. They seem to not have any understanding at all about how difficult it is for us to expand and contract. We can't deficit spend, so I can't base 6 more months contracts on that they might give us another allocation. So if they tell us at the end of the month, we'll have 2 weeks to get amendments through to keep the system in place. So there's a very big disconnect between what's going on in Washington and what's going on at the local level. And then if you throw things like Head Start that's getting cut, and food programs that are getting cut. They just eliminated $40 billion from the ag bill. And, I'm talking to people today at the Washington level to try to get that back in. So we're really trying to work Washington, but it's not going. It's the money's just gone.
My other question was the changes with environmental health and the air pollution or the air quality, that the Maine department the responsibility went back to the state.
Right.
How's that going?
I'm not happy with it.
Okay.
I mean, we got a letter from them saying that they were taking the program back because they could do it more efficiently and effectively than we could. We were inspecting gas stations twice a year. They haven't inspected them since they took the program back. So I'm very concerned that our air quality is going to deteriorate for lack of attention. And we're fortunate in that we've been in a recession, because if we had a growth period with industry, it would take a very long time to get your permits. I mean, I'll give you an example. When Lumiere Place was being built, they forgot somehow to include us in the loop that they had a boiler. And, we weren't thinking boiler for something like that, in this day and age. So we found out 2 weeks before their opening that they didn't have a permit for their boiler. Our staff went and got them permitted. I mean, they made it a priority, and they made it happen because, of the impact on our area. The state would have said, we'll see you in 6 months. And so, that's just another situation where they took a cut, and rather than lose state positions, they cut every local program across the state.
But, Pam, if gas stations are supposed to be inspected 2 times a year, and we've seen that bad things can happen, and we have seen bad things happen with the explosion of the, in Texas, with the, come on, what's it called?
Fertilizer.
Yeah, the fertilizer plant.
Couldn't think of that word, senior moment, sorry. I mean, is there any recourse?
Well, it's more of an issue, and we are still monitoring the air quality. For gas stations, it's more of an issue of making sure that their pumps are in compliance and not leaking, so they don't add to the ground level ozone levels, which make asthma worse. So really, our only recourse is to monitor what happens to our air quality over the next couple of years, and then be vocal about the fact, if it actually deteriorates, what that means.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Behringer. Alderman Williamson.
On page 245, I know that you're talking about directors in hospitals. I guess you guys are not planning on fulfilling that position, the 23M. Is that still open?
It's zeroed out in the budget. I've committed to stay 4 more years as interim.
Okay, so this is your position?
No, I'm a health service manager 1. On that same page, I make $82,000 a year with benefits. I don't know how it's shown there. I think there's 2 health service manager 2s. Health service manager 2 on that page.
Twice time, okay. All right. So
I'm actually in a civil service position.
Okay. So this first position is zeroed out?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The last director made $150,000.
Okay. In dealing with animal control, how you guys dealing with that? I know you have, less employees now. How is that working out? Because what happens, with a lot of our residents, we get a lot of complaints. I do anyway when it comes to stray dogs and what have you. And I've been suffering, or a few constituents have had dog bites, okay? Hard time of getting a response from animal control when it files up through them, along with the police department, getting a follow with the police report and dealing with animal control. A lot of times they say they call there and they really don't get any response, or nobody can really answer their, complaint, or they get put on hold. And if they, if they're gonna call back, it takes them a while for the animal control to really get back with them. So they're having a hard time with really dealing with some of the employees with animal control. So how are you guys kind of dealing with that, you ladies?
We monitor it closely. Commissioner Moore is very committed to quality assurance. She and I both go on call periodically so that we can see how it's working. Most of the situations that you're talking about that involve the police are after hours, and people don't understand. We have people on call. So it takes a little while for them to get there, in the evenings and weekends when they're on call. And I'd asked for 2 more full-time animal control officers because I'd like to have shifts and reduce that on-call and reduce overtime by having a shift that works from, what were we talking about? Yeah, till midnight. They'd work till midnight. And then during the day on the weekends. But it has not been recommended at this point.
So what's your staff from Monday through Friday during the day hours?
They work from 7 to 6.
How many employees do you have?
We have, you're going to have to help me, we got 6 full-time animal control officers, and we have, I think, 2 part-time now or maybe just one, and then we have 3 full-time vet techs and a veterinarian in the shelter.
3 vet techs?
And, they're doing a really good job. I mean, the animal control officers have really shifted from being cage cleaners to enforcers and officers. They issue over 400 tickets a year. In 2009, we issued 0. So it's really a focus on, responsible pet ownership, on dog bites, on aggressive and dangerous dogs. They've really embraced that. We've done things like get uniforms. We're going to paint logos on the trucks. We're really trying to raise their status, as these are not cage cleaners that are coming out here. These are officers, that deserve your respect and that will be respected. We've built a great relationship with the police department, constantly strengthening that relationship. And there are always, though, going to be communication issues through that 911 system. I mean, we always work on them, we always try to follow up on them, but we found that there just always are, because they don't know our business. Using 911 as our call center, they don't know our business. When people call CSB, they come immediately to the staff, and they, get formed out those complaints based on what wards they cover. So during the day, that system's pretty fast.
But, the complaints I've been hearing with really kind of with animal control and calling there and kind of getting placed on hold.
Okay.
And getting a return call. So if you guys can kind of check
One of
that
the
out,
things-
I'm pretty sure they're swamped.
Yeah.
You guys got hit, a couple of years ago when it came to the budget.
Yeah.
Quite a few employees, but.
We've got
you just
4
kinda-
clerical staff back there. They should be able to
Well, they should
answer
be able
those
to handle
calls.
it, right.
Now, I know for a while Commissioner Moore had heard complaints about how people were being treated on the phone. So she was having the clerical staff come back and tell her when they got a call, what they told the person, where they sent the person, who they dispatched. She's worked on scripts. I mean, jump in here because this is your deal.
Yeah, they have, so my question is it the officers in the field or the slow response time in getting that call dispatched to them?
Right.
Okay.
Dealing with the office mainly, not so much the field
Field,
work.
it's
but
internally. Okay.
Internally calling the office, getting a response when it comes to.
What we've done
report
is
done.
we have cross-trained our clerical support in environmental health, and each position there has an opportunity to work the desk to field the calls and to work the dispatch. So we have met some bumps recently. Yes, we have. So, and I just met with them last week. They have the script. They have a good sense of what happens, and they understand that the calls that they receive are not necessarily like a call that comes in and it's a complaint about a restaurant. It's another sense of urgency that you have to have in order to get it, because you got a life out there, you got another animal involved, and you need to be out there quickly. And it's being able to multitask and make that happen quickly. So you should see some improvement with that, but that has been an issue for us, and we are working on that.
And whenever we're duty officers, we like call each other and go, you can't believe the call I just got.
Right.
Because if you get one animal control call, you've had one animal control call. Every single one is different. I mean, it's just amazing, and it takes a lot of common sense and training and experience in the field. And we've got our experienced people training the new people, and they,
It's kind of, it's just cross-training.
It's that cross-training.
filling the Positions, you kind of get, okay, that's fine. Your transmission sexual disease, how is that on an uprise or decline when it comes to the PAPs? What's going on with that when it comes to gonorrhea, syphilis, even AIDS?
Yeah.
And I know you guys keep pretty good records. And St. Louis has a good reputation of keeping good record when it comes to the health program. How's that coming along? Is that
Gonorrhea has
increasing or decreasing?
Gonorrhea has declined 34% in the last 10 years. And I really credit our partners for helping us reach out to the youth community, because that's where a large percentage of those STDs was between 11 and 24. Chlamydia is going up and will continue to go up across the country because we haven't found it all yet. There's no signs and symptoms. If someone has gonorrhea or syphilis, they're going to show up someplace for care. It's going to get reported to us. But you have to find chlamydia when people come in for routine health issues, yeah, so
we're up on it. It might be another.
We wish, we're encouraging people to do more testing. If they do more testing, we will find it. We only have, 31 cases of syphilis, which drives me crazy. I'm like, really? We can't go track these people down and and eliminate syphilis? But we always get down to about 30, 25 has been maybe our lowest, and then it'll go back up to 50, and we'll have a little outbreak. So, that we work on. But the big concern for me, is gonorrhea, because it's a gateway to HIV, particularly among our youth, and chlamydia because, it results in infertility later in life. And to see teenagers getting chlamydia at the rate that we were seeing them, we've got 7,000 kids with chlamydia. Now we have 60,000, 55,000 kids through that age group that don't have it, So, we try to work on on the don't, the positive side of what do they do right as well. And I'm gonna let you talk about the youth that we brought into the department.
So we went through the community health assessment and the CHIP. So we haven't let that just sit dormant. I have a youth supervisor that has been tasked with what we're looking at now is who has the lowest STD rates. What innovative strategies are they using as it relates to the population that's impacted? Which brings in the youth component to that. I have been in contact with Mr. Holmes through Slate, through Merge Goodwill. We're going to bring in we'll probably have not as many as we had before a couple years ago, but we'll probably have about 8 youth. We'll have 8 youth this summer. We have a curriculum for them that takes them through the CDC's sexually transmitted infections modules. They go through that. There's also a component in there that talks about self-identity, self-awareness, that really gets to the self-esteem piece. We have the professional development piece because we're looking at career tracking and that kind of thing. Now we have 4 positions that are with us for 1 year. They work 20 hours, up to 20 hours during the school year and up to 40 hours in the summer. In the 9th month of their being there, because they rotate out in February. So in the 9th month of their being a part of our department, what we're doing is transitioning them, getting them ready for what they said that they wanted to do when they came in through our process, our entrance process. And most of the youth that we're working with, we're prepping them for either college. If there's one, I think I might have 1 or 2 that are still in high school, but keeping them back on that track. And then I have one who's has completed his Associates of Arts degree, and is working on, and we're working with him to get into another university so that he can continue his education. So this 1-year experience exposes them to public health, community work, working within the community as relates to sexually transmitted diseases, emergency response and preparedness, lead poisoning prevention, and asthma and obesity. The other thing that the youth are going to be embarking on, we've just gotten approval that we're going to have a weight loss challenge. So then the obesity piece is going to be in there because we want to reduce obesity, as you very well know, according to the sustainability plan, by 5%. So we have, and of course our hallmark program is our Let's Move program. And we just started our event for the summer last week on the golf course over at Grand Marais. So we're exposing our young people to golf, exposing them to being healthy, being active. I'm excited about the weight loss challenge because, as I was saying earlier, this is an opportunity for us to expose the children, expose families to trying things that are different, through different recipes and that kind of thing, and keeping them moving within the home. You don't necessarily have to go outside, but we want the youth, our young people, to be outside, our children to be outside, engaging in safe activities.
I think that's a great initiative. My last question is pregnancy. When it comes to teenagers, is that on the uprise or is that
What we're
kind of tapered
finding,
off? Or?
And Pam, I have the data.
That's my last question.
We're going to be working with Wyman Center. We're going to meet with them in July because we want to sit down and talk about an initiative, because the data that they shared with me when I was in a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago was that we're seeing an increased rate in 10th graders. So we want to utilize our youth that are currently engaged in our programming to look at the 8th and 9th graders to see what messages can we put out there, age-appropriate messaging regarding abstinence to address teen pregnancy. So it'll be a model where we utilize young people in delivering those messages, and we'll pull from our curriculum that we've developed for our youth too, because we have that self-identity track in there, and then keeping them focused on the education and abstinence, yes, most definitely.
One of the things we really embraced a few years ago was that all of our kids need to feel loved, feel safe, and have hope for the future. And whether it's obesity or teen pregnancy or an STD, it's because they don't have one of those things. And so by getting the teens out in front it sets that example of that they are loved and there is hope and there is a future. And so our message is, the only way to really uncomplicate your life and focus on your goals, because you have goals, you want to be something in your life, is to abstain, and we say that. And if you can't abstain, then be in a monogamous relationship. And if you're not going to do that, for Pete's sakes, practice safe sex. I mean, we do talk about all of it. And we do promote condoms, and we do things that people consider are controversial. But we always start the conversation with, you need life goals. And there are people that can help you establish those life goals. And all this other stuff is going to keep you from getting there. So it's very powerful when the kids get involved with each other. It's really, they're not going to listen to a middle-aged, white woman telling them what to do. It's like a lecture from grandma. They're just not going to take it. But they do listen to their peers, and it's a really neat program.
Okay, thank you. That completes it. Alderman Moore, any questions?
Pam, is it?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been with the city?
Came in October of 2005.
You are the director.
I'm the interim director.
Interim director. How many STD clinics are there?
There are several clinics. There's the Spot that focuses on teens. We fund Connect Care $500,000 a year to run an STD clinic there. We partner with People's Health Centers and also St. Louis County. So we've got several access points for us for clinics. Yeah, Grace Hill as well.
Commissioner, the disparity studies, are they by ward or the city as a whole?
City as a whole. Now, we're the only city that drills down to ward and can provide you with some data as relates to prevalence rates and that kind of thing. But the disparities report that we put together is by the states, actually the 4 states as a whole.
I have a problem with food trucks. I'm a non-vending ward, but I have a few pirates in my ward, such as Sweet Tooth. I'm sure you've heard of her. She runs from the police with the barbecue pit on the back of the truck. It's comical, but it is so amazing. It is so true that it's going on like that. This lady sells barbecue. She has no license, and she's just selling food all over the ward. And when you see her going down the street, there's big smoke coming from behind the pit, about to catch on fire. She hides the burned meat and barbecue sauce. And it's horrible. Once you get a taste of it, you won't buy anymore. She pulls up at all of the venues that we have in the community. If there's something going on, she's gonna pull that truck up with that trail on the back, block traffic, cuss you out, and sell all the meat she can sell. And she just takes over. She has no license to do anything but poison people. And we need to run her down. And Mr. Frosty is another guy with a very, very deplorable looking truck. It's very unsanitary. I mean, you look in there and look like he's been serving ice cream for 50 years of just ice cream droppings all over, just matted into the area, into corners and stuff. He's really horrible. And then when you approach him and tell him it was a no vending, I got license. Everybody, first thing they said, they got license. But my ward is a no vending ward. So they're not permitted in there. So we just wondering about the enforcement in my community. Another thing about the people that are doing a lot of the craziness in my community, it's like it's after hours, after you guys settle down, the pit bull fights start, all the craziness gets started. But I can say, I haven't said this all day, it's like saying who sung the best song on American Idol. You guys have done a magnificent job of ridding my community of these dogs so far. But yesterday I thought it was over. And yesterday I was in the 4200 block of Garfield, and there were these 4 dogs in high pursuit of another dog, and I mean, they were running like antelopes in Africa. They were at full speed ahead, ignoring anybody and anything, any car, just chasing each other. You know, for one, because they have all the empty land, they were like acting like wild dogs running through the community. But I must commend you guys. I've called and I've got about 50 pit bulls on my phone that I keep, and I've sent to the commissioner about these dogs running loose in the neighborhood. And these kids got these dogs walking them, and they should have license to carry the dog. It should be like carrying a concealed weapon, because they don't know what to do with them, and it's just absolutely out of order what it has come to with these animals. But I commend you on, when I call, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but when I call, they show up. They show up after hours and they get the job done, and you've been doing a good job, and I can say that for the first time today. Are the gas tanks part of your environmental, because you know when they're dumping the gas, when you go to the sites where the gas tanks are, you smell an enormous amount of gas, not just the vapor from the tank, but which can be a fire itself. But they dump it and dump the gas that's in the tanks right in those spots. So it's getting into the well water. That's a very high environmental problem with these gas tanks that are beginning to increase throughout the area. So
nobody's watching. The Department of Ag goes by and checks their meters somehow, the State Department of Ag, but I don't think they do
So how are they
environmental
notified?
look, you know?
how are they notified? Do I have to bring that to your attention? Because we have spots, loads and loads of them in pockets all over my ward. It's just sitting there. Some of them, when Forestry cut around them, they're just sitting there in the weeds, and it's hundreds of them throughout the community.
It used to be an abandoned tank program at the state, but let me call DNR and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Because there was a fund that took care of some of those abandoned gas tanks.
What
The
about the
underground
cars?
ones are,
But these are the ones on the cars.
yeah.
Well,
No.
before you can dispose of a car, you have to take the gas tank off.
Oh.
So when they're trashing cars and the junkyards are trashing cars, they pay somebody like the tires. You can't melt a car down with a plastic gas tank on it, so they stock them. Every car that you see that's getting ready to go into the junkyard, there's no tank on it.
Yeah, would you send that information that you're gonna get, so we can get it out to all the
I'll do
members?
some research and see who might be in charge of that.
Okay then.
Okay, what about the tires with the mosquito larvae in them? Are we spraying those tires, or?
Our mosquito spraying program is 2 parts. It's complaint driven, so if you have a tire place and you report that to us, we'll go spray. We spray special events that we know of, like the Mimi and
Prior
those
to?
things prior to. If you have something in your ward that you're doing on a weekend, let us know, we'll spray that area. And we try to get larvae in mosquito pools where we know there's standing water, we'll spray those. But we don't go through and spray every single neighborhood on a grid. We found that is not as effective as actually spraying where we know people are going to be and focusing on the larvae. And we've not had a positive West Nile case in quite a while.
What about that truck that you guys got that everybody runs from when they come down the street?
We will do that, but we use a non-toxic substance that kills mosquitoes but doesn't hurt people. But if you ask us to, yes, we will. We've done neighborhoods before.
Can you provide me with an address of where